60s next week, so we'll see.
I'm ready for mid-40s.
I'd go with 60s or 70s.
I'm with Tammy on that one.
65, 70 is really not bad.
No.
I agree.
Low humidity, I can work with that.
Yeah, I thought it was hard to breathe on Saturday. I was outside most of the day and it was hard to breathe.
I ran my normal Sunday morning errands yesterday, and it was actually comfortable. The sky was pretty good.
Time for our meeting. Okay, pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, time for public comment. Julie, I see you're there. Do you have
I'm
some
here.
comment for us?
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, just a real quick update. As of today, we have 482 confirmed positives. Out of those, 124 are considered active cases, and we've had 353 recover. So we only saw a handful come in over the weekend, about 5 to be exact. We currently have 2 COVID positive patients in the hospital. One of those is actually a readmit. So they're back at the hospital and they're in the ICU right now. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. There are 172 tests pending as of today, and we've had a total of 4,892 negative tests in the county so far. So over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen a decrease in the percent positivity from week to week. Our screening line is still available weekdays 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., as well as our email for general questions. So that screening line is 323-6400, and the email is rileycountycovid19@gmail.com. Kanza United Way is available to distribute free masks between the hours of noon and 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Looks like we are finalizing our plans for an alternate care site, as well as a permanent place for our respiratory clinic and swabbing station. Until then, we will continue to host the swabbing station here at our site throughout the month, and it will continue to be managed by Kanza staff. I do know they are starting to see slow in those numbers. So I'm not sure last week how many they had, but I know the week before they were averaging about 5 a day. So we're starting to slow down there. Command staff of the EOC is meeting 3 times a week with a regional EOC briefing every Monday at 3. The clinical task force, Andrew here from the health department and the lead nurse from USD 383 are having another meeting this morning to finalize protocols for the school district moving forward. I am still doing K-Man updates every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. Actually, Vivian was on for me this morning, as well as Facebook Live on Wednesdays at 4:15. We have switched from a daily press release to just 3 days a week now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Questions?
How are we working and navigating with these probables or possibles, or I don't know what the correct term is with this. How are we incorporating those into our numbers since KDHE has kind of changed that?
Yeah, so since KDHE is putting those in with their numbers, we have decided to do the same to be consistent. So those probable are antibody tests. So we just add them to our active cases because it is a reliable test. But we do count them as recovered. So they go into our total, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. They go into our total confirmed positives, but we treat them as recovered. So you'll see that add to our number, but then we'll automatically put them into the recovered, if that makes sense.
So we're reporting active numbers as just COVID tests and not antibody tests. Is that correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. That was the only question I had.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How's everyone doing?
All right.
Commissioner Ford might be bringing this up in his comments today, but it's just something I think the overall county commissioners need to talk about and make a decision on. It's in regards to an email from Aaron Estabrook saying that he received a question from a local school principal as to why Riley County staff in the Riley County Courthouse Plaza buildings are not wearing masks. Specifically in the area of the first floor where people congregate to renew tags and registrations. The concern raised to me is centered on an example of county staff conveyed to the public appears contradictory and defiant example to the public. I'd have exception to the word defiant because that is not intended by staff, I can assure you. There's a citywide mandate. There's a statewide order for wearing masks in public school buildings. Kansas State University has their policy on face mask coverings, but for whatever reason, when someone goes to renew their tags, they cannot find a single person working for the county wearing a mask. Of course, the city commission was not seeking a heavy hand in enforcement with the ordinance, but we do want to be conveying a unified message. I agree with the assessment of the individual that brought this concern to my attention and wanted to give Riley County Health Department and Commissioner Ford an opportunity to resolve any further issues. I'm sure you can imagine the perspective of the local principal that is working to keep their building staff and students safe and just want to see the branches of government doing their part. And so I asked the board, I think the board needs to make a decision on what's expected of all county departments, all county staff while they're at work. And I think whatever's decided, it would go for the board as well, as soon as you walk in this building. And so I just think there needs to be some discussion, decisions made. All county departments currently do wear a mask if they go out anywhere into the public, to my knowledge. Just like our office is no different than the treasurer's office. When we're back behind the plexiglass shields and a safe barrier, we do not wear masks. So we just need to discuss that, I think, since this has been brought up, and make a decision for consistency throughout the county. And it's going to be somewhat a little bit different with the Public Works Department as well, because they aren't in the city, but how do you want to treat it for consistency's sake amongst county staff? So I would ask the board to discuss that and give staff direction on how they would like to proceed.
I don't wear a mask in my office.
Nor in my office, because that's part of the deal.
Right, I don't either. I'm just asking for clarification. I'm not disagreeing with the decision that's been made at the county, but obviously Aaron wanted to bring this out in public and have a discussion about it. So I think we need to have a decision. As I told our staff early on in our office, and two of them here can attest, I said, we'll do what our board asked us to do. I made it very clear to everyone.
I think the shops are a different animal. They're not that close together out there. And there are really not that many people in the shops once they go out to work. So to me, and mechanics and stuff can't do it. It's not good for them to wear a mask in their doings because what they've got. But I don't see a problem with the way the shop is operating.
Yeah, you have to remember, shops people, there are groups of people walking by each other, no different than within offices. Plus they have administrative offices out there as well, where staff are in enclosed buildings, and they may have separate offices like I do and some of my staff has, but not all are. But all workstations are 6 feet apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think since it's been brought up, and I think Commissioner Ford would agree, it's probably something we need to discuss and get direction from our board.
Well, the down here, I think it should be done because they're interacting with a lot of people coming in and out and stuff, and we probably should wear the mask. I just think that you brought up subject with the shops, and I don't think it applies as hard to them as
The discussion here centers around basically the Courthouse Plaza East.
Yeah.
Both public coming in and how
Yeah.
we as staff interact
Yeah,
with said
and
public.
I agree.
So really, the issue wasn't that.
I know, but he was talking about
Right.
we're going to do it one place or we do it another place, everywhere.
This is where conflicting messages and conflicting orders have different different meanings, I guess. So I've been over there several times. I don't go over there to the other building as much as I probably used to for obvious reasons. So I really haven't had a chance to look, to interact and see how it goes. But when I went over there to advance vote, and when I went over there to take a look at the remodel in the appraiser's office, I didn't see anybody really in non-compliance at that point in time. So
I don't think
it
it's
wasn't
as
an issue
true.
for me.
I don't think it's as true as what they're saying.
Well, I can tell you, staff, when they go out in public, when
Mhm.
anyone goes to the restroom, goes out in a public area, staff are always wearing a mask. But when they're behind, like the clerk's office and the treasurer's office, they have plexiglass barriers. Staff behind there do not. Now, in my office, I've given staff the option, you can if you want to, but you don't have to. You're not required, because that was the direction we were given early
Right.
on. But I think now that this has come up, it's something that the board needs to discuss, because obviously there are other elected officials with another public entity that are discussing it.
And when I got the email, I forwarded it to, I think, every department head that basically is in the building there. So everybody should be aware of that at this particular point in time. So if I remember right, our direction was to wear them when they were in public, when you couldn't be 6 foot spaced and with barriers. And it was up to the department heads to figure out how to do that interdepartment.
So are you guys still okay with that, is the question? Because what the individual saw was the department's complying with exactly what was just said. I have not seen any county employee that's in a office building that's in a public area from behind their counter that has been violating that. So the
Is
county
Julie
commission-
still on the line?
Yeah, she is.
Okay. Is that still consistent from your perspective, Julie, if you can hear us?
Yes, I can. Say that again, I'm sorry.
From the board's perspective on how to deal with masking as far as interdepartmental, particularly over in the courthouse east plazas, our current decision of when we're dealing with public, obviously wear them, but if we're behind barriers and 6 foot distance, department heads are okay with doing what they need to do there?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because I know we had decided that. And then when the city put their ordinance in, I think where Aaron was coming from was just consistency across the board. So everyone to be wearing masks. We don't have barriers here. Well, we do in certain cases, but our policy here at the health department is that everyone's wearing a mask unless you're in your office by yourself. So regardless, we're wearing masks. I don't know if that helps or clarifies or anything.
You have anything, Ron?
No, I agree with John. It's just, we're a fairly affluent, well-educated community, and we have a lot of people with a lot more time on their hands than they probably need. And I think that we're doing, as John spoke, a very, very good job of representing the county in this situation.
Okay.
So you're fine with department heads conducting it as we're currently doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to be clear. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Nothing else? Nobody? Okay. John?
Okay. I actually wasn't going to bring that up in my comments, so Rich, thank you for doing so. That was the main reason, I guess, probably why I did send that, just so everybody has a heads up and knows that where we're at's where we're at. So for me, Thursday afternoon is, I guess, where I'll start again. I did set in on a NACO webinar. This was dealing with how counties are investing CARES Act funding to support local economies as well as the workforce. This is through the Workforce Development and Economic Development Committee, very large committee, one I've applied to be on. So I guess I'm starting to get this information. I don't actually know if I'm on it yet or not, but in due time. Basically what this particular webinar was how to mitigate job losses in communities and ensure individuals that are either furloughed or laid off due to obviously the current pandemic, how they can re-enter and basically get back into the workforce appropriately. Jim McDonough, commissioner from Ramsey County, Minnesota. I almost said that with the right accent there. Lean Becker, who's also from Ramsey County, dealing with workforce solutions there. Ramsey County, of course, is the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, just in case you're tracking. David Marquez, executive director from Bexar County, and Jim Schimmer, director of economic development and planning for Franklin County, Ohio. We're all on that particular webinar. And then after that, also Thursday afternoon with NACO, I listened to the national membership call kind of get the latest information about whatever this next stimulus package is going to be. To be honest with you, there wasn't much of a change on Thursday. There wasn't much of a change over the weekend, obviously, except for the president's executive orders. The one interesting part on this one was they did give some distinct differences between the HEROES Act that was passed much earlier in the House, and then this HEALS Act, which was in the Senate right now. And some of those differences and deciphers were actually quite insightful, and I just don't know how it'll work out overall. Friday afternoon, I did speak with James Kelly, District Director for Senator Moran, obviously on some broadband and wireless questions. He's going to be getting back with me here shortly on some language and guidance for both potential federal dollars that will be coming and, of course, Spark funding that's sitting at the state that I believe is going to be kind of divvied up in the second round. Their office is in direct contact with both entities on how to kind of write that and how to address that. So I don't know how that'll work out on the state end, but just something to think about moving forward. He also mentioned to me that the Kansas Farm Bureau is kind of backing these efforts for this too. That's something that they typically don't do. So that really kind of shows you just how important this particular issue is. And I tend to agree with all the parties on that. And outside of that, just once again got caught back up on email and correspondence over the weekend and got back to square one there. And it was a hot weekend to do much of anything else. So that's it.
Ron?
Well, mine would run us well off past our business hour, so I'll defer it till next Thursday. But basically, just suffering from the heat, mowing, working on the remodel, and sure the Royals won. So
Yeah.
pretty much the extent of mine.
Thank you. Mine got kind of busy in the fact that I had grandchildren visit. Two of them married, one of them not yet, one of them too young. And my daughter was also there. So just to help Vicky, and did great. Vicky didn't have to lift a finger for nothing. As a matter of fact, all of the grown granddaughters threw me out of the kitchen. So, but they were there till Sunday, and my water bills went up. My food pantry is almost empty, and but we had a great time. Just enjoyed the devil out of it with the grandkids, and hadn't seen them in a long, long time. So that's just one part of them. There's a whole bunch somewhere else. So anyway, that's what I did. And I forgot to check my emails, forgot to check the phone, forgot to check everything. Just stayed with that. Had a good time. So that's where we're at. Okay, business meeting.
Business?
Yep.
First item is online access agreement with City of Manhattan.
Move to approve the renewal online access agreement with City of Manhattan.
All second.
All in favor?
All right.
Good.
Chairman. Places, please.
Signed over there.
Thank you.
Next, we have resolution expressing property tax policy of Raleigh County Rural Fire District governing body with respect to financing annual budget for 2021 and to be included in the 2021 budget documentation required by state.
Any questions?
Second.
I didn't make a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Kind of speed this up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Scared him there. All three, please.
Such a habit to
It's
do that.
awful when-
I know. Yeah, I know.
It's awful when second comes in before first. But
I guess I kind of preempted the usual traditional plan there. My bad. And I forgot to mention, if anybody's interested, I have some homemade brownies that were delivered to me this morning by a member of 4-H. So help, please. They look
Always
really,
willing to help. I mean,
okay. I'll make sure you get one before the end of the day.
Next on, we have Riley County Personnel Action Forms, Sophia Dinkle, new hire as county attorney, John Griffin, salary adjustment for Barry Wilkerson as assistant county attorney, James Reinberger, WIC supervisor, separation of service, Caitlin Smith, promotion, WIC supervisor in the health department, and Amanda Smeller, new hire as planning and development director, in planning and development department.
One down, 2 more to go.
Hopefully just
One.
one, or 1.5 at this point. I was trying to figure out what number to put on it. That's what I was doing.
Like we got one leg in, one leg out.
Yeah, I said 1.5.
There you go.
Kind of seems like we're halfway there. Ready for the minutes from the board is?
You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tentative agendas look, gentlemen.
I'll take a peek. I forgot to look.
I did, but I forgot what was on them.
Doesn't
Plenty of
look
time to
too,
look.
Yeah,
doesn't look too bad. I saw a deal in here for Shelley, said she wanted to postpone the her stuff on next meeting.
but she's still gonna give a staff update. So
Yeah, okay.
probably just part of that.
They're long enough. So.
Yeah,
an election canvas next Thursday or next Monday,
Next
right?
Monday, yeah.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
Any items for next week's press conference, gentlemen?
I don't.
Here.
Okay. Next, 9 o'clock.
I'll be on K-Man tomorrow.
They doing it live yet or still zooming?
I don't know. They haven't told
Haven't
me.
notified you?
I'm sure it's probably now.
Yeah,
Be surprised if it's not.
I have a feeling that's gonna be the case for quite some time.
Probably.
Oops. Curious how kicking off school starts going for everyone. My wife starts today.
When does USD 383 starts?
The 26th.
26, okay. Oh, that's right, they were supposed to start on the 12th and they moved it up 2 weeks, that's right. Guess I don't quite pay attention to that because I don't have kids or
Right.
anything.
You just have
vested
to
in
pay
that, so.
attention to the yellow blinking lights when school starts.
Yeah. You can tell there's a new group of people in town, that's for sure.
Yesterday was crazy.
Yeah,
It's been crazy for the last weeks.
All the cleaning supplies were gone again.
yep.
I heard an announcement today that Clorox said don't expect wipes to be on the shelves the remainder of the year.
I got about 3/4 of a bottle at home. I'm wondering how much I can get on eBay.
Depends on how much you got.
3/4 of a container.
They said that in that same story, they were talking about how there were pallets full of them at like some NBA facility, you know?
Yeah. Looks like some other things are kind of getting a little bit back to normal. It looks like both the meat stock and prices is kind of coming back down to a normal range again. At least on beef anyway, I've noticed that.
Yeah, I saw an interview with the plant-based meat boys. They were all excited because they're getting the price down closer to real meat.
Mhm.
I think they're really gonna be a big chance for them to take over. And then, of course, the beef interviewee pointed out, was reading off all the chemicals in there and the salt and everything. So not that it's healthy, it's
It's just not an option.
Well, it's high in sodium and
Mhm.
all the other components in there to get it to that point. If that
That's what
tells you
I'm
anything.
curious of the long-term health impacts of some of
Yeah.
this.
For some people, maybe that works, where they cut out the fat and the cholesterol, but if you have high sodium, you start doing that, it ain't going down, that's for sure, so. I prefer to eat the food that eats that for food myself. That's just me.
Charcoal grilled ribs were pretty good last night.
Yeah.
Plus my one daughter was back, so I got a homemade blueberry pie.
Yeah, I take my youngest granddaughter back to meet the folks in Oakley. Go back to Colorado Springs.
You got a pretty good drive then.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's an easy drive.
That's an easy drive. That's
That's out where I go antelope hunting.
meet them at noon on Wednesday. And I have to do all the chores. I'm back to, but Vicky's getting along fine.
Instead of 3 or 4 women toss you around, just one again, huh?
Yeah, and the dog.
Through the dog.
And the dog. I guess it's just too quiet at my place, I guess. My normal standards.
No dogs, no
Pandemic
cats.
sure
No
played
dogs, no
out the
cats.
animal
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Ready, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, first report's 2020 year-to-date wage and overtime compared to budget report. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, we're at 58.33% point in time of the year. That's just what we use as our indicator for the budgets to see approximately where the departments are, see if any of them are getting a little bit too high compared to the point in time in year. That's not always an apples to apples comparison, as you'll see in some of them coming up. On personnel, wages and overtime compared to budget, everything's really looking pretty good. I'd remind the commissioners that the EMS ambulance, the overwhelming majority of that overtime is budgeted just due to their schedule. So that's anticipated. Overall, the middle column, we're just at 6.09% overtime overall. Commissioners have any particular questions on any departments there?
No, I don't.
Next report is breakdown, a little bit more detail of all the respective departments, regular salary, seasonal, temporary, and overtime. Just detailed information for the commissioners to review. If you guys have any questions on those spreadsheets?
I don't.
Next report is the 2020 year-to-date budget activity. Once again, we are at the 58.33% point in time of the year. You see some of those highlighted in the blue. Basically, all of those are cyclical based on appropriations and insurance payments needing to be made. Also, later, farther down, some of them are capital projects, capital improvement funds, capital funds that have exceeded, and of course, those aren't required to be budgeted, although Riley County does budget them. And Tammy keeps a good close eye on that. And of course, this first page, those individual departments in blue would not be budget violations. It's just if the entire county general fund would exceed 100% at the end of the year, which we do not anticipate and are not in fear of doing that at this point in time. Any questions on that first page?
Yeah.
Always like to point out that general, 2 lines down from the largest blue section there, it's just at 15.76, and that's because of that 2.4 million we have in budget stabilization in there, gentlemen. Next page, a little bit more detail here on other funds. These are individual funds that if at the end of the year we're exceeding 100% would be a budget violation. And like I said, Tammy keeps a good close eye on these and communicates with the department heads on the need of a budget amendment prior to the end of the year to make sure everything is in compliance. Once again, many of these are cyclical. It would be why they would be over with having budget appropriations being paid out of them or larger capital projects. Any questions on any of those, gentlemen?
No.
Next page is all enterprise funds. No general taxation dollars are used in these funds. Gentlemen, they're all paid by individuals that live or own properties in those benefit districts. They all look to be doing good at this point in time. Any questions on any of those?
No.
No.
Next report is that little detailed breakdown of general that I just referred to that has the 15.76%. You see the miscellaneous amount at 2.4 million I was talking about, which none has been expended, like the atypically lower percentage of budget spent at this point in time. The personnel line items, gentlemen, I can guarantee you this year will take a good hit due to separation of services. You gentlemen know we have several long-term employees that will be getting payouts of their leave time, and that's what that line item is for. There are no hourly employees that are paid out of that line item. It's only for separation of service monies. Any questions on that? Next report's report that was developed years ago to compare current year to the previous year per department through the month of July and also year to date, or July to July plus through the year to date. You gentlemen have any questions on any of those?
I don't.
It's good to go back and see how departments are doing respectively compared to the previous year, but always remember, it's not always an apples to apples comparison, as I can tell you. This year's election budget would not be anywhere near comparable to last year's due to this being a presidential cycle, as an example. Next report is RCPD expenses paid by Riley County. Breakdown there, ones that can go up in a hurry typically are the physician and also building maintenance are the ones I like to keep an eye on. I like this next report here that kind of shows through 2015 comparatively where we're sitting. You can see, as I told you a couple times before, we have had an inmate that had higher than normal medical cost. For the physician, we are higher than normal at this point in time. Do anticipate it being fairly high, and you consider we're just a little bit past a half of the year gone. So do anticipate that to be higher than we've had for the last several years. But as you gentlemen know, Riley County is statutorily legally responsible for all medical services for all inmates. No other public entity assists with those costs. And so no matter what the cost is, whether we have the money budgeted or not, we have to pay for those costs. But we do have adequate funds in there at this point in time. Any questions on that, gentlemen?
No, I don't.
Next is RCPD offsite medical inmate expense paid by Advanced Correctional Healthcare. You can see right now our pool balance, we still have $18,032 remaining. So we're sitting all right there. Could be closed by the end of the year. And then the average ADP is at 53, average daily population of the facility. Any questions on that report, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay, gentlemen, you get more time to look through those reports, have any questions, as always, contact us. We'd be glad to get you more detailed breakdown of any questions you may have. I'm glad to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Weedle at 9:15.
Yeah, that's.
Ron, how's your remodel project coming?
Very slow.
Very slow. It'll probably speed up at the first of the year.
And this job here, I'm mowing, it's into my time.
Yeah, yeah. First of the year, it should start to speed up.
You better believe it. Vacation time, so I get my parole.
You saw I came by your house, got my stuff off your property.
That's maybe the board kind of where one of the safety levels when we be ready to do a face mask. They kind of see what you're doing.
So,
To me, that's more of a safety hazard.
I appreciate, anyway, I appreciated your faith in me and your patience on
I
me.
came over there the other day and I just saw everybody.
the one leg,
Yeah.
that was that trench, they,
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
big rut they made when they was putting in pipe rock. It's just sand and
Yeah.
we stuck the thing.
It is, that's true. I tried to get out of it, but I moved it over a little bit. And evidently, the trench was wide enough, so.
While you were there, I didn't have to worry about dropping my damn mower tire.
Yeah.
And when are you leaving? Friday.
very excited. For
Is
sure.
she
Yeah.
nervous?
You know what, I really do think she's getting a little nervous. But she's ready. Yeah.
Is she good? Did you say she's not gonna work?
That's, if she works, it'll be
on
on campus, like in the vet, with the vet hospital there, on campus. So they sometimes hire students to help take care of the animals and stuff, so. But other than that, she's still concentrating on school. That's good.
Is Lonnie's doing this online?
Excuse me?
Lonnie's doing this online?
No, I don't think he usually shows up, but I don't know, it could be.
Okay. But and the friend, and the roommates moved in this week. And so she said,
You got a pretty good crop of tomatoes?
that's kind of what the room.
Got green ones setting on, so they're just now coming on. My cherry tomatoes have been doing really good, but my garden is close to my crop field, and I don't think it was the guy that sprayed our crops, but there's been a lot of aerial sprayers out in our area. And I think one of the aerial sprayers got stripped over on my garden because you can tell several of my plants have been hit really hard by something, especially my pepper plants, and killed my bean plants. So we got some residue from the wind currents from aerial sprayers that didn't do us a favor. And there's a lot of oak trees that are showing signs of brown because of that. So that didn't help me, but they're starting to come on a little bit now. I'm getting a lot of squash. A lot of okra.
Good. All I did was tomato plants, put them on my back deck in the kitchen. We're starting to get, I got several dozen already. Not big ones like I like, but they're pretty good tasting.
Oh, yeah. Way better tasting than those you can buy in the store.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things in the summer is tomatoes.
It could have been, yeah.
Didn't have to fool with any worms or anything, because they were up there and one tomato maybe on a plant would get something, but other than that, it was good. Sacrifice one for the rest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. She's taking hers.
We had variation of little tomatoes and big ones and stuff. Worked out real well.
My jalapeno pepper plants are producing some, but they got hit hard too, because they should be a lot bigger, but I'm getting some really big jalapenos. And some getting are just hotter than tar.
Those are good salsa jalapenos there.
Those are the ones I like. I eat them with dinner a lot. I do. We make salsa with them.
I won't go and store them jalapenos in a combustible container, will you?
No, but not. That's the way we sat down for dinner one night, and my son was out here a couple weeks ago, and he bit into that, and he said, oh, this isn't gonna be good.
Yeah, 4 in a row. The
Yeah, what's the
Royals.
deal? I thought of you when I heard the 2 in a row. I thought, I'm thinking, I thought
Yeah.
of John.
Yeah. Watched yesterday. Is this Brady
It's
Singer?
time,
I think
Tammy.
should be legit.
That's
Thank
not
you.
Look at you.
It's Monty.
Supposed to be
Monty, you
money.
online?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Do you have any questions?
No, I think you've explained that several times pretty well.
Okay, I just need you to authorize the chairman to sign those 2 forms, the grant agreement and the authorized signature form.
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we sign the grant agreement and authorized signature form for the CDBG-CV. Ooh, that's kind of a tongue twister. Grant from the Kansas Department of Commerce.
all in favor?
Aye. Several places.
Several places, yes.
Yeah, no,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Is that deal tomorrow down here?
Yeah, 2 to 4. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, I got them all.
Next, gentlemen, we have a press conference at 9:30.
Okay,
Yeah, I think this little young group of pitchers that the Royals have got I think they're going to hit on every single one of them, and that's going to be good here in the next couple of years, I think.
I'm sure happy for the fellow from Junction City.
Till he got injured Friday. They put him on 10-day IR or whatever.
What happened to him?
He made a catch out in the outfield and kind of bounced off the wall and strained something. It's not bad, but yeah, pretty happy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize we had a local guy playing until I heard a couple
Yeah.
times when I mentioned. I was like, oh, that's
He's
neat.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Kind of young and raw, but
Glad to see that.
for as bad as the Royals have been over the last couple of years, they have been restockpiling talent, it appears. So it's just a matter of making it work and fit. I don't know. New owner, new manager. Take some time. And like several bombshells got dropped over the weekend for college football, it looks like.
Probably more coming.
Mm-hmm. Big 12 board of directors is supposed to meet this afternoon at 5 with their team of medical directors.
Right, I haven't really paid much attention.
Over the weekend, the MAC conference, the Mid-American Conference, nixed all their fall sports. So the first Division I, although Division II and Division III canceled all theirs too. So, and that includes K-State's first opponent, Buffalo, who's from that conference too. So as of now, we don't have a non-conference opponent.
Well, my son and his roommate get pretty up to date on that because his roommate works for under Gene Taylor.
Yeah.
And fundraising and stuff, and so he was watching it religiously this weekend. You know, I was over helping my son in his place. Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a handful of student athletes that are opting out of scholarships, and for various reasons. And some of them, I would say, are probably legit and valid, given the dynamics. But
But you know, a lot of those kids, I think, pull the trigger premature, could just sit back and wait, and maybe it's all going to take care of itself.
most of the universities are still going to honor the scholarship part of it. So they'll still have the ability to go to class on whatever model that is at any one particular university, but
Thing
still.
is, what's he gonna do? I mean, if they end up not having a season, what's he gonna do next year for recruiting and number of scholarship limitations?
Yeah,
Man, just the domino effect.
uh-huh. What does that do to current player eligibility? If you're a senior, do you get granted an extra year? Do you not? If you'd already been granted your 5 years and a medical waiver in that process, how does that work? I mean,
Yeah, so
there's
it was my daughter's
a lot of logistical
boyfriend,
things
the
there.
one that made the blueberry pie baker, her boyfriend's quarterback for University of Central Missouri, and he's 5th year with had a medical.
Uh-huh.
This is his year, and so yeah, he's watching it like crazy. As are we. So I was hoping to get to watch him a lot this year.
Yeah. Big Ten met over the weekend, and I guess the board of presidents there from each one of the universities, at least it was said through the media, I don't know, make of that what you will, but there's a majority of the presidents from universities that are willing to vote to postpone the season. So I don't know how that works out, but that would be a major Power Five conference. So
Didn't the Power Five group meet?
they meet separately conference-wise.
I thought there was a group of them that kind of got together on a call and had a discussion.
There may have been, yeah, that BCS committee or whatever.
Maybe.
That's a lot of money at stake there, a lot. There's some talk of doing a spring model instead.
It's unreal.
Maybe starting the season in February and trying to run it through
Let
April or
let
something.
alone what they'll do to the market on broadcasting.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that, they have no way to collect money for advertising if they can't show something.
And I don't know, those contracts are usually signed in advance, so I don't know how that works. But, for some of the smaller schools and some of the smaller conference schools, like some of the schools from the MAC or the AAC or Sunbelt or, all those, those schools will play a K-State or a Alabama and Clemson or something in a non-conference, and the money they make from basically getting beat up on in those games basically pays their entire athletic department for a year.
Mhm.
So, that hurts.
Who'd ever thought?
I guess from my perspective, if the summer had gone with this as like planned where everything was going to tail off or whatnot, maybe it would have been a different set of circumstances, but it just didn't work out that way. I don't know.
Didn't get to see what the ball's gonna bring.
Did you hear this deal with the Kansas Speaker of the House?
What's
Oh.
that?
Going back to them being exempt from all this, and then look what happens.
Commissioners, I had a question from Julie Gibbs. At 11:45, when we do the discussion of local health order 16, do you want her here present or do you want her on Zoom?
I thought we could do a better job if she was here.
It's up to you.
I know that was Marvin's original request.
Yeah.
Right, I understood that. I want to make sure that's what the board's after. So, okay, before I told her, she just asked by text, and I want to see.
Okay.
I want to give her the afternoon.
did not find
Thanks, I just wanted to get back to you.
We're getting pretty close, huh?
Oh,
Had a reminder, didn't you?
the reality has definitely set in. As I went to bed last night, I was thinking, what am I doing? Is this, yeah, it's okay, but yeah, it's just reality,
Change can be difficult sometimes.
yeah. My house is all in boxes and rooms are being emptied and
New exciting adventure coming up.
it is.
Mhm.
It is exciting and I am very excited, so. I've got lots of well-wishers and, you know, that just puts it into more reality, so.
Mhm.
I come prepared. Oh. I asked my daughter to watch, so hopefully she's on the Zoom.
Rich, I was fortunate over the weekend there about the range hood vented out because I had to clear a stud. But I could have just got the stud out, but didn't want to do that. Want to get the outside part done while it was cool. I did the whole thing. And normally sheet metal takes a box of Band-Aids. Didn't have to buy one.
Yeah, sheet metal.
Oh, yeah. One time we went into water, got me an arm load, of course, being a man, I don't use a cart, you know, I just try to carry everything. Razor sharp, tiny sheet metal, and this elbow slips off the top of the pile, I go to catch it, it enters right here, it opens out a great big chunk of meat,
Uh-huh.
I grab it real quick, and a huge pool of blood on the floor, and little Bob used to work for him, plumbing,
Uh-huh.
he walks over and he goes, ah.
That's no good. That wasn't any help.
So I drove myself up to the hospital to have him stitch it up. And next day on the sheet metal, it had a big sign, caution, sharp edges. And
This is why we have to have signs.
Exactly. Did the Ron Well sign.
Mhm.
Is it raining?
Looking like it, huh?
It looks like.
Thought it was supposed to be this afternoon.
I know it was very cloudy this morning.
Yeah, it was. But the rain was south of us.
I got rain Saturday night. I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, thunder.
Yeah.
There were some wicked clouds in the area yesterday morning.
think it's time, yeah. It's time to have us make a very, very sad thing, and Cindy,
Hold on a second, let me get rid of
I was hoping to know you for longer, but the whole
it.
thing
Maybe it's
is,
been too long.
yeah, not too long, and but that's what, the last century, you met what, 1992, 93?
93?
93.
Yep.
Seems like a long time.
Yeah, in some regards it is, but others it's short.
Yeah. But anyway, for the short time I've been here, it's been great. I have, and so wish to present this for your recognition and dedication to Riley County of 27 years. And, so would you like to say something? I know we need for you to say something.
Okay, well, I saw you have up to 10 minutes on the press conference, and I thought, good Lord, why 10 minutes? But I'm gonna take my mask
Go
off,
ahead.
so if that's okay.
I'll back up.
You know, I have lots of things to say, and a lot of it, most of it is absolutely wonderful. Riley County has been so gracious to me over the years, and I have to thank Rich and the commission to give me many opportunities, and this has just been a definite career growth for me from when I started until today. And so many of my coworkers who are here today, you know, I've seen a lot of people come and go over 27 years, and I feel like I've touched every single, not physically, but you know, I feel like I have touched their
Especially right
lives. I have touched their lives in some fashion, and I hope that they all are for the positive and for the better, you know, of Riley County and the community, you know, that I've served. And so it's just been a blessing. And Rich, I was trying to think, when I was promoted to the HR manager, it was Commissioner Newsom, Commissioner Kearns, and who was the third commissioner? Was it Johnson? Alvin?
It's been out.
Yeah. So they saw, you know, with Rich's support, they saw some things in me that I guess maybe at the time, maybe I didn't fully see myself. And so that's why I say I'm very appreciative of all the opportunities that have been presented to me, and, you know, the support from everybody. So it's been great, you know, and it is bittersweet, but I'm anxious for my new adventure in my career. Just was to a point where I thought I needed to change, and it's a very good change, and absolutely no regrets of anything I've done with Riley County. So,
Well, I know.
so I appreciate it, everything. So,
I know that Riley County appreciates what you have done, and I know you've touched many people and have enriched their lives.
I hope so.
And I don't think there's a person in here that doesn't want you to advance. You know, we'd like to keep you,
Yeah.
but we
I'm sure.
know that you need to go on with your life
Yeah.
and do something that you'd like to do.
Yeah.
And so we want to wish you the very best.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So
I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So you-
Yep.
So if you're packing everything, you can put that
Yeah,
back in.
I am packing everything.
Cindy, I've been very impressed with your knowledge of HR. I mean, just
Yeah,
of everything. And then I spent a lot of time, 8 years, attending regional and national events, and the respect and everything from other HRs, and then from a person from Salina. She wished that they had an HR over there as well as good as you are. So
Oh, that's awesome.
very nice knowing you. Really appreciate what you've done for me.
Great, thank you.
Well, you want to talk about short amount of times. I've only had a chance to work with you for a year and a half, but I have noticed from day one that whatever questions come up, whatever questions I've had, whatever challenges have come up, you've been on top of it with very good detail, and been willing to work through a couple of those that might have been a little bit challenging, but you were always on top of it. And I know particularly during the spring here with personnel issues dealing with this pandemic, but I
Yeah,
can't think of anybody else that would have been better suited to help us navigate and work through that than having that experience and being able to do that. And very, very gracious and very grateful for the time I've had to spend.
thank you.
And I want to
Means a lot.
wish you a lot of good luck
Yeah.
moving forward as well. And I know you're going to do a fantastic job for whatever city that is. Prairie Village. I wanted to say Leland, I knew that wasn't right. So, yeah, you'll do wonderful in that position. I have absolutely no doubts about it. So,
Thank you.
Thank
They're
you.
excited to get me started.
Good.
So, yeah.
Rich?
Okay, well, this is a bittersweet day, as we've all acknowledged. Cindy started in 93, like she said. I started just a little over a year before Cindy started with the county as the accountant in the treasurer's office, and she was the AP clerk. So Cindy and I have worked very closely from the very beginning with the checks and balances of the two sides. So we've kind of grown up through the county together. And then when I got the position as the county clerk, like I said, it's been a great partnership. Cindy's always been there for me, and I've always been there for Cindy and supported each other, and we've come a long ways with the county, but she'll be missed, and she knows that, but I'm very happy for her as well. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
you need a picture of her?
Yeah, better have,
Okay,
better have.
with
The commissioners.
commissioners? Okay,
Okay.
if you'll get out in front.
Anybody got a phone to take a picture?
I did bring mine.
Well, looks like we're gonna get lucky.
I've got one.
Somebody,
Oh,
Mary's
the
got
Mary got
one.
one. Yours will be better than mine.
I'm not gonna put my mask on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll
Fine.
stand in front of you.
Yeah, you can stand in front of
Okay.
us.
I have a camera. You want me to take it here from Zoom?
Oh, Leon.
Where do you want me to go?
Probably right closer to the center there, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll move over a little bit.
Okay.
Does Leon have any words of wisdom?
No.
Okay.
Where do you
Do
want
we
me
need
to
to
go?
move a little bit over?
Want me to
Go
go over?
this way a little bit more.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
This
Okay.
way. Perfect.
Okay.
Marvin, can you move this way just a little bit? Thank you. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need one?
Oh, yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you smiling?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
For the record, I was smiling. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
So where do you want me?
Up here with me?
Yeah, get one of Rich there with you.
Take the mask off. You trust me?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good Lord, we're in the office all the time.
We are.
Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you, Mary.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
And to everyone, we are having a reception for Cindy from tomorrow 2 to 4. We're encouraging more of a come and go due to the circumstances, you know. So everyone that wants to stop by and say hi and goodbye to Cindy, we will be having a reception over here from 2 to 4.
That'd be awesome. So hopefully all of you can come.
Yes. Okay. So next,
Press conference.
Yeah,
We're behind
press-
on press conference.
yeah, press conference is,
Still on
Public Works.
Public Works.
Cindy still has 2 more minutes.
Well, maybe you can say something on her behalf, Kim, take up the other 2 minutes.
Let's stick with the road.
Okay, I tried.
Well, good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Gary Rashevitz, Assistant Public Works Director. Wanted to inform the public that a week from today, that'd be Monday, August 17th, it's our plan to start our road sealing program for this year. And tentatively, the way we've got these scheduled up, they'll be in the following order. Fancy Creek Road, which is up north, Rosencutter Road, Molman Road, Hinton Road, and South Manhattan Avenue. And of course, those last 4 are that little network of roads we've got down south of Fort Riley Boulevard between Rosencutter and South Manhattan Avenue. So, and if everything goes according to Hoyle, we'll have these things wrapped up Thursday, August 27th. Traffic will be allowed through the construction, but there may be delays. Questions, comments?
no,
No.
no. Thank
you
you.
very much.
Okay. Rich,
Sure. I'm up here tonight. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Just want to remind everyone the primary election, the results that are out on the website, I have to remind everyone, are unofficial results. The official results will not be final until the canvass of the election, which is next Monday, August 17th at 10 a.m. here in the county commission chambers, where the commissioners sit as the board of county canvassers to finalize those. Generally, we have more provisional ballots to process than we will this time, so I don't expect it to go very long. There weren't a lot of provisional ballots. I was overall very pleased with the process. What I did like about how we did it this year is people had the choice to go to the polling places or to participate by mail, whatever their concerns or schedules dictated was best for them. And so I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of people that showed up at the polling places. The combination of the vote by mail and the polling place election did significantly increase our participation from a comparable primary election, presidential election. So I was very pleased with that. Already have one question about what about the number of ballots that you didn't receive back? That's no surprise. We know some people, when they get those ballots and see them, excuse me, they applied for them for the ease of the process, but when they saw them, they decided there wasn't really anything they wanted to vote on. And so, that's people's choices. And so that's going to be that way. Just because we mail out 7,000 ballots doesn't mean that we expect it all to get all 7,000 back. And so I do anticipate a much higher participation rate for the general election because, as you know, this year on everyone's radar is a presidential election, and that's when that decision gets to be made. And so we're very pleased with the process, but want to remind everyone of the canvass of the election for the final results, not until next Monday. Any questions?
Once again, based on incidents that happened this past week, I'm not asking for it to be done. I would like to know of the ballots mailed in, how many actually reached the clerk's office, because again, this week happens way too often now. I got a letter addressed to somebody, it's 10 blocks away. And I've mentioned it previously, my concern about mail-in ballots and the condition of the USPS and their rate of success. So just based on just me, one person, and quite a few incidents, and some of it's pretty, when you find five different families mail stuff in somebody else's mailbox, pretty onerous, I think. Didn't seem to concern them much. And also putting my mail in somebody else's mailbox, putting their mail in mine, which isn't even on the same street address. And so that's just a curiosity of mine. I wish there was some way to easily know the number that was actually mailed to the clerk's office and how many actually arrived.
Yeah, and that no one will ever know, not even the post office will know, but I can tell you this, that we got our largest adjustment in the mail on that Monday, I believe it was. We had over 700. And then the next day, it would have been the Wednesday after. And then the next day we had very few, and the next day after that, very few. And they're postmarked, and I don't know, but very few, maybe less than 2 handfuls, and with the postmark. And so that tells me, that we didn't get large hundreds the next day or two. They just didn't come in. And I can tell you this, and I'm glad you brought it up, Ron, because it's something I failed to do early on in the process. I meant to for our local post office. Our local post office did a tremendous job. Our staff does a great job of communicating with their staff. And there's one individual there in particular, which went above and beyond to work extra when they really weren't scheduled to focus on just our election mail, that would contact our office in the afternoon. We'd get our general mail about 10 or 11 in the morning. And that individual would separate the election by ballot mail and let us go pick up a second batch that afternoon. That's not typical. And so, like I say, just because people say it so doesn't mean it's so. And just because it goes on that way in one jurisdiction and the national media picks it up doesn't mean it goes on that way everywhere. I can tell you here locally, we were very pleased with our mail service, and they did a tremendous job.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9:55 next. Russell, how are you doing?
Good. You guys ready
So,
for me?
well, no, with 9:55, we'll get you, but you can spread the books out.
We'll spread
meeting material.
Mm.
Stay awake at night.
Or sleep.
Or sleep.
I say, I'm already awake at night most nights, so it might be the reverse for me.
Thank you. How's Russell?
I'm good. Yourself?
Good. Thank you. Getting here before it rained. It was lightning, nice lightning show.
Really?
Over there when I drove up, yeah.
Huh.
I was in a hurry and want to get all your,
You have one for Tammy, right?
I got a,
Right there, okay.
we got a bunch for it. So. What do you need to get for us? Here's all of them. That's just a bunch of required communication letter. One of those. There's a good email this morning. It's on there. I'll come by sometime. I can put the bond. Put the CD in your drive. Move the CD stuff over to that. And get back that way as well. If you have the sample of the items, the selection, we can think, that'll be the major one, the major program for sure. Maybe the only one, hopefully, but for sure will be one. We'll get the limits. Yeah, we'll get the, gate orders. Yeah, we'll do gate orders in the fall, September, October-ish, and as soon as that's done, we could, time when it's towards the end of the year.
Well, as long as it's started.
Okay.
And within 90 days, years, what they're looking at based on what the federal may be allowing us in
And I could always,
So if you
we
can
could
get
start it,
it
we could do a preliminary bill that would basically see a lot of purposes and stuff, that's out on that.
Because I think February is our last reconciliation year with the state, so everything should be ready for you by February, but.
We can't make the whole sample for all the expensive and yes, we'll get the compliance and let's determine what we're gonna need. Hopefully, there's gonna be some guidance, but they might have additional guidance on what they want. Hopefully it's done before you're in and not next July. So,
We have a separate fund set up for it.
all the revenue community expenses that you're paying out coming in.
Well, the revenue will go in there, and then the reimbursements will come from there. But what we're going to spend, we can. There's no reason why we can't keep it in that disaster fund, right?
That makes sense. In case there's more other activity comes through.
So the only part that won't be in will be what we've already spent.
Okay. The stuff that you're
31st.
reimbursing the other, the cities for, are you support for all that, or how's that working?
So we're working on that. It looks like like a reimbursement based on dollar value based on some criteria. So if they use it towards their reimbursement, that's what we do. I mean, it's not against the support for the audit.
Okay.
But we're not owing you because we have to spend it on.
That's on their agenda for tomorrow. That did not know that was. And, yeah, I'll take my reviews on too.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll look to see what, if there's any guidance on what kind of support.
Guess if you couldn't sleep, this will put
You
you
may
to
not have, they
sleep.
might say, hey,
Yeah, I'm already napping.
what you want to do, as long as it, you have documentation on what you're giving to them for, why they're requested. That might be sufficient, and they might say, hey, they didn't invoices of support. I don't know yet. I haven't seen
Yeah, they're gonna, I mean, they have to give this,
Okay.
it's the spreadsheet that we have to roll back up to the state.
Requires the, okay.
So.
Exactly, yeah.
Signing MOUs saying that they agree to abide by these terms.
That's
So.
good.
Would anybody else like to have a
Look at it,
brownie?
so, okay.
We'll have them open.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody else want a brownie?
Determine yet, like.
Oh, I'm right home, but I'll take one here before.
Okay, before we leave, that'll work. That'll work.
They have to do stuff, so I'm sure by the end of February, it's basically done, so, but they have to spend it by the end of the year, correct? So,
No, that's the thing. Is anything that goes down to the federal. That's what we're kind of-
one more time, so,
Like the 90 days after you,
yeah, or 1.5 months, yeah.
we don't have that pressure rate anymore.
And it could change in August, and it could change in September, and
So we should be starting to think about so we might just.
get some downtime in November. Yep.
I mean, I can give you what you
It depends on how much money has been spent at that point, so okay, well, sample size is gonna be X, and you spent X amount of money. We'll take X amount of that sample from there and start actually doing sampling and working on that, and then we'll do the last part for December, whatever's left to make some transactions out of that time. So we'll have to fix them at the end to make sure, especially if it's hard copies till December, we'll fix them in December to make sure there's nothing in January that got to the back that wasn't allowed. But
So originally, the state did the only one to do the audit, and there's no way, which is impossible, so that can be possible. Well, then they can't clarify, so, yeah, we're wrong.
This is federal funds, but it doesn't count for your single audit, that would be.
I know. I was like, okay, well, we'll see, and then they clarified, so. So, yeah, that should be.
So I'll probably give you a call next week, come over today and grab that back from me and get the seed from you, or we'll move it over onto that.
Oh, yeah.
So that. So, yeah.
Let me see, where you could just-
It's all about questions, so. I'm like, I can do a 5 minute, or I can do an hour, you know, most people want 5 minutes.
We're hoping for 2.5.
Oh. Okay.
Put your auctioneer voice on. Let's see if we make it work.
We have a remote employee that's in Virginia. I think she got, either her or her husband got sick, but she remote to Virginia, South Carolina area. But I think everything pretty much. She mostly works on tax returns and compilations throughout the year, and so she.
You must be working on those.
We're trying to get that, everything's just, some people work very good remotely and get you stuff. And some people, if you're not there, you're outside, you're out of mind, and it takes a little bit longer. But that's been the difficulty and the challenge, I guess, going through this summer, spring and summer, so.
It's funny how some people enjoy it, and just like some people become self-employed and work from home, and then they kind of find out that's overrated. They don't really care for that, you know? It's totally different. Like you say, some people like it and thrive in it, and others, it's not for them.
I've had a few clients that are excited about working this way next year too. I'm like, well, we'll see. Let's come out though, great, that's great. So. Come and watch the audit.
If you walk, you might get rained on.
I've parked across the street, Wood parked over there, and now I'll park across the street over there, and then there's lightning when I came up. So nice sharp lightning off to the east.
I guess the cloudier it stays today, the less of a chance of severe weather they're predicting for this afternoon, this evening.
The hotter? You said the hotter it stays?
Well, the less hotter it would be.
Less hot, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, generally when it gets hot, that's usually when it freezes
Yep.
up the real big ones, you know?
I'm not so, when I start talking about large hail, that's when my eyes shoot up.
Yeah. I witnessed that while here at work one time. It was tremendous.
You're on.
All right,
Okay.
so, well, good morning and
Morning.
Morning.
thanks for having me at the commission meeting this morning to present the audit. I should have handed out both the audit report and the required communication letter. Go through the letter first, something we have to discuss, or actually I have to give it to you, not to discuss, but I would like to point out some areas going through this. As far as you guys are on the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, kind of accounting policy, regulatory basis accounting. You do a gap waiver every year, so you follow the Kansas Municipal Audit Accounting Guide. With that, KMAG this year, there were no significant changes for the KMAG or any GASB changes that affected you guys for this year. The one that could be coming up is, the leases for GASB side. The KMAG board has not decided how that might impact you guys in general. Hopefully they don't do anything that's going to require any major accounting or anything like that. I would expect some footnotes, but nothing major, hopefully. That's kind of the changes in practices in accounting. No difficulties encountered in the audit. Like I said a few minutes ago, the biggest difficulty, or really a challenge, difficulty was just the change in location as far as auditing, mostly remote, emails, calls, and a lot of correspondence back and forth, come up, pick up some documentation and that kind of stuff. No disagreements with management. And then no difficulties going through the audit. No other audit findings as well. Last year we had some recommendations with the cash collection points. We visited everybody during the 2018 audit and went through a pretty robust process there. And we didn't go out and visit anybody this year due to the situations, but we did contact everybody and go through either email or phone correspondence with them. And per discussions, everybody said they implemented all the guidelines except for one, who said they didn't get the information, or I would say they said they didn't get it, but they have implemented it since then is what they've told us. So we'll follow up next year on that one. And I did find out who it is if you need to know. I think it was the cash with the fair board as far as that process, but they said they're implementing that and going through that. So again, next year, hopefully we'll get back out and actually visit the place to do more walkthroughs versus just the correspondence and follow up with those procedures and controls that are in place. Working with Tammy and Shiloh and their staff, especially remotely this year, no issues. Getting documentation was great. We came down for a few things. A lot of things were remote. They sent some stuff our way, going back and forth. So again, there's a challenge as far as going that probably on both ends, but everything worked out. We're still here presenting maybe about the same time or a little bit later than last year. So I was pretty happy with the timing and going through things. So that pretty much covers the letter and the things that are required to discuss, and we go through there if you have other questions. But any questions on the letter?
I don't.
All right, we'll get into the big book here, the audit report. Going back a couple pages 1 through 2 after table of contents, 1 through 3 is the audit opinion. Basically, our responsibility as auditors, our responsibility as an auditor is to give an opinion, is to review your internal controls, to review your financial data, and to give an opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting, which you guys have chosen to abide by. Your responsibility is this financial statement, is the controls and the processes of internal controls and making sure they're in place, and also choosing the regulatory basis of accounting and doing that gap waiver in order to follow those steps. Page 2 at the top, it does show the first two bullet sections that you have an adverse opinion on gap. That is a required section in here for the KMAG opinion as required by the regulatory basis of accounting. Basically saying that if you did a gap audit, we did a gap audit, gap financial statement, they would be significantly different. But you guys do pass that gap waiver, as I would say 97% of all municipalities in the state of Kansas do. Very few actually do the CAFR. So that third bullet section down on that page is unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. That is the opinion that we give. That's the highest opinion that we can give, is unmodified. There are no modifications. There are no qualifications. Basically saying everything is fairly presented in material respects to the cash balances, unencumbered cash balances as of December 31, 2019. At the bottom of that, we do discuss that there is supplementary information after the notes of the audit that we give in relation to opinion. That's all your schedules for your individual funds, your budget to actual. Page 3 in the middle, we do talk about, we also do a single audit for the county in relation to all the federal funds that are received And it talks about the schedule of expenditure of federal awards and in accordance with uniform guidance. There's also reported in the back, and that we have a government auditing standards report in the back as well that we kind of address as far as internal controls and processes as far as what the county has overall. The next page, actually pages 4 through 6, is your statement. It is a summary statement for the county that shows all your funds in summary. So it has beginning cash, any canceled prior year encumbrances, receipts, expenditures, your ending unencumbered cash, your accounts payable and encumbrances, and your actual cash that's in the bank. Looking through these pages, one thing as far as looking through, you want to look at the last column and it's in the third to last as far as your 2 cash balances. See if you have any negative cash. If you have any negative cash, that could be or would be a cash violation for the state of Kansas. None of your funds had a negative cash at year end, so you were all in control or well maintained as far as the activity throughout the year. On page 6 does show the ending cash for the county and then the breakdown of the composition of cash on how the cash is composed in the banks, whether it's CDs, cash, savings, etc. After that, I'm gonna skip past the notes. Again, nothing really new or major in the notes as far as activity goes. It does show your debt and where you are as far as that goes. But I'm gonna jump back to page 17, which is your first schedule. It is a summary of your expenditures actual to budget. It shows all the funds that are budgeted by the county, whether they were required to or not. All the ones with asterisks next to the name are funds that are not required to be budgeted, but the county has chosen to budget for them anyway. The one thing we look for on this is overall is on the variance column on the far right. We look if there's any positive numbers. Any positive numbers in that column would show that the county exceeded its budget authority for the funds that it budgeted for. And there are 2 funds during 2019 that exceeded the budget authority. One was the motor vehicle operations, and the other was the road and bridge half-cent sales tax. They exceeded what you budgeted. It is to note that those 2 both have asterisks by their name, that those 2 are not required funds to be budgeted. In essence, that's not something that should be considered a budget violation. It's an internal process that you guys budget for it. It's going to note that it appears like it could be a budget violation, but those funds are not required to be budgeted by the state of Kansas. After that, basically the majority of the rest of the book are the individual funds, budget to actual, that shows more detail, that takes a summary up to the statement in the front. I'm going to skip over most of those and jump back to page 77. This is your schedule of expenditure of federal awards. All the federal funds that you have spent during 2019, unless they're received, but actually spent. This will look significantly different next year with the funds that have been received and therefore, and then what you're going to spend during 2020. But so $1.6 million of what you had as far as spent federal funds. The major program that was under the single audit is actually the top grant that is shown there under food and nutrition services for special supplements nutrition. It was a major program mostly due to amount. There's other qualifications that require that to be the major program for this year. And then basically the last 4 pages, I did mention that we have the government auditing standards report in the back that talks about internal controls. And on page 82 starts the report for the compliance for each major program for the single audit. If there was any findings, whether they're just compliance findings or any internal control areas of what their deficiency, a significant deficiency or material weakness, they would have to be reported on these 2 pages or on these 4 pages of these 2 different reports. We did not have any that we've reported to report on this year, so there's no significant areas of concern, no findings reported within the report itself, which is always good to hear and good to report on as well. So, any questions on the audit report, on the findings? Okay, wonderful.
Good reporting also comes from
They do a great job on
yeah,
getting things together and getting stuff to us. So
yeah, they do. That's what makes your job easy.
yes, it does. It helps a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, Russell.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, stay dry out there.
Yep. Sounds like it's.
I thought I heard some rumbles of thunder there during your presentation.
Dennis looks dry, so.
It's coming. It looks like it's coming.
Yeah, it's still dry right now. You're good.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
How's Dennis today?
I'm good. How are you all today?
Good. We got you in 5 minutes.
I'm gonna have Captain Kyle do the presentation
Okay.
on the JAG grants.
Okay.
And then I'll follow up with my monthly update.
Okay.
I was told that was.
That'd be great.
Today.
That'd be good. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. I hope you all did as well.
Quiet and fast. Make of that as you will.
I ended up with about half a dozen grandkids at the house.
Oh, yeah. I'll keep you busy.
Keep me out of house and home.
No, I know. I will.
Great time, had a great time.
Good?
Very good.
Mhm.
As you would expect.
That's what I figured, yep.
Josh, how you doing?
Doing good, yourselves?
Good.
Wonderful.
Hello.
Morning.
Oh,
Oh, like your mask?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you got in here just in time.
Yeah, I don't think it can figure out what direction it wants to go. I swear it was coming this way. Now it seems like it kind of wants to come back this way again, so who knows?
It's kind of metaphor for the entire year, I think.
Whatever it is, it's not very happy. I went out to Colorado for vacation up in the mountains. It was kind of nice, but it thunderstormed every afternoon.
Mhm.
Which trick number one is if you decided not to do anything because of thunderstorms, you never do anything.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you're out in the middle of a lake and suddenly it's like something's happening. But thunderstorms there aren't like here. Like here, they announce themselves, you know they're coming, you know you're gonna have about an hour of really, intense activity and then it's gonna go away. Yeah, Colorado, not so much. It like kind of hails on you for a little bit, and then it just stops and then, oh, let's start up again, why not? You got one pattern coming this way and another one going this way.
The variety's the spice of life,
It is, you just go with it.
Unique thing out there too, is September 2013, I'll figure the counter in a minute where I stayed, but anyway, when I left that morning, just cruising through this little valley, and I actually saw a rainbow touch this side over the top of me at this side. One rainbow, just perfect. Just
Yeah, you couldn't get the leprechaun or the pot of gold on either side,
one
could
goal
you?
on either side. I was doing that pop-up showers, what it was, but it really didn't, almost didn't hit the ground.
Oh, yeah, it'd be raining, on one side of the lake, it'd be raining, on the other side it's sunny, and then all of a sudden, there's this wind burst would just hit you, but then it would just stop for no reason. So, yeah, it was different, you just kind of go with it. They're real serious about mask wear out there, though, that's for sure.
I saw somebody else saying something about that too, that it's,
Yeah, they got a good penalty on it.
Mhm. Mhm. They're doing a lot of outdoor things too, where the downtown areas are the streets are closed off. You can walk and bike, but you can't drive a car, and then they put out all these outdoor patios. It's nicer there than it is here, it's cooler there, but a lot of places we're having to eat outside.
I think, I see us developing something like that maybe for spring and fall here. Looks like they're open.
Yeah.
Open the regulations for it, but, yeah, I don't think I could sit outside and eat dinner in 100 degrees and 100-degree humidity or
No.
5 below, 50-mile-an-hour north winds in the winter. That's just not gonna work for me.
Yeah. They also don't have the bugs that we have.
Yeah.
Josh,
Ready?
Yep. you're
All
ready.
right. Okay, I have a fairly brief presentation about the two grants that we have. The first one to talk about is the JAG coronavirus grant. As you're probably aware, the federal government sends out funds to law enforcement across the country in the form of a JAG grant. It's based off of a formula. Every individual community knows exactly how much they're going to get because of that formula. They decided to use this same process to address coronavirus. This is an emergency grant that was put out. Using that formula with the amount of money they had, the Raleigh County Police Department received in the neighborhood of just short of $63,000. In advance of this grant, we had to announce those things that we were intending on purchasing, and it's overwhelmingly majority of it is protective equipment, masks, gowns, those kinds of things. A lot of cleaning equipment as well. Specifically, those things that are able to quickly clean a vehicle or a jail cell without getting material all over everything that you then have to turn around and wipe off. There's some foggers and some other pieces of equipment out there that have proven to be very effective. And so that's essentially what we've purchased or began the process of purchasing through that grant. We have about, I think, 15,000 that's unexpended so far, but we've fully begun the process on spending down that grant. I don't know what official action that you have here that you need to take other than just an advisory on my part.
Yeah, motion to.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to
Yes,
accept them
go ahead.
individually or
Individually.
individually? Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the JAG coronavirus grant.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman, signature spot and majority or initial.
We need to do the grant application separately too.
Yeah, the next one separately,
Okay.
correct.
Good thing we have a large budget for the little stickers.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that's a lot of signing to do. Okay, the next item before us is the typical JAG grant, Edward Byrne Memorial Grant. In this case, the formula usually works out somewhere around $20,000, and that's the case this year. It's just shy of $20,000. The intent for this is to provide funds to local law enforcement to purchase those things that they otherwise may not be able to purchase with operating funds. In this case, we have a number of patrol rifles that are issued out across the police department. The overwhelming majority of them reside in the police vehicles themselves or locked down inside there, and they're available to the officers when they need them. None of these rifles are ex-military rifles. These were all purchased by the Raleigh County Police Department for use by the Raleigh County Police Department. However, these weapons age, and the equipment that goes with them, you can imagine you need sighting systems and lights and those sorts of things, and it's time to replace a number of these items. Obviously, this would be a significant financial expense for the RCPD to take on with budgetary funds. So the grant allows us the opportunity of replacing these lights with grant funds, rather than using operating funds to update the light systems and make certain that they're working. We also have a couple of spares that are available when we need to fix them. In addition, as you're probably aware, we purchased a armored vehicle for the tactical team. I think it was 2 years ago, and maybe last year. And that vehicle was purchased with seizure funds. It turns out that it has some ports on the side by which officers can fire their weapons if need be. However, there's a significant offset in the armored vehicle itself, and so we've discovered that we need to extend the end of the guns themselves. So part of the grant request is for 6 extended silencers that allow the end of the barrel to go beyond the wall of the armored vehicle itself and not risk the possibility of shooting a bullet within the vehicle itself. The overwhelming majority of the funds are for lights, but a subsection is for those silencers as well.
Move to approve, sign the 2020 JAG grant application.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, well, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Appreciate it.
Initial. Thank you, Josh.
I'm gonna
Thank you.
make one small change in that because they got me with a D as my middle initial.
Yep.
Let me go to signatures down here. They have a D, it should be a J. Make sure this one. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Sir?
Morning again.
Morning, eh?
Morning.
The list is rather short, but there's also a letter here I'd like to read to you. The first thing is we are later this month going to hold a captain's selection process. Captain Fink is retiring at the end of the year. And so we need to replace him once he retires, but we also have an interim jail captain right now, so we have to hold a process for that as well. As you can imagine, when those selections occur, then we'll also have promotions to lieutenant and probably some sergeants as well, and I'll keep you posted on that. Tomorrow at 11:30, I have been invited by the Chamber of Commerce to be the speaker for the Chamber's Power Lunch. When this was first scheduled, I think it was in March or April, it was supposed to be in person. And what I had planned to do was talk about our core values at the police department and just introduce last year's core value winners, not go through a ceremony, but just introduce them, and we were going to buy them lunch. That got postponed. I'm not a real big fan of doing this virtually, but they really asked me if I would. So what I did was I put together a brief PowerPoint on core values and how we use them in the department, but also added a piece, since it seems to be a topic of interest these days, on police accountability, to talk about what we do within the department to not only hold ourselves accountable, but also share that with the public on what we do. So that'll be tomorrow at 11:30. Also, last Monday, a week ago Monday, we launched a Twitter campaign. Some of this material is also on our other social media platforms and on our website, but it was put together by our victim advocate, Melissa Mosier, and it's a Twitter campaign that's targeting sexual assault issues, specifically more of our younger residents who would either be of college age or young soldiers. Just some of the things that we're doing on a regular basis is posting information with links to more information about promoting reporting it, first of all, because it's a heavily underreported crime. Also providing statistics about sexual assault here in Riley County and in the state of Kansas. Special messages to victims and survivors, community and state victim-centered resources, information about consent, dispelling myths related to sexual assault, and just general safety tips. One of the other pieces of this campaign is we are tailoring the messages to that younger age group, but also gender identity, and sexual orientation. We also talk about our policy change last year to Your Option, Your Control, which provides several different options for people to report sexual assault. Some folks are ready to go full-fledged into an investigation and try to help us hold the abuser accountable. Others are not ready for that, but they want to make a report just to document it. And we've set up options where we can do that with them and just let them move at their own pace. And we feel over the long run, that will encourage more victims to come forward, and hopefully some that are reluctant in the beginning may in the end want to come back to us and help us find the person accountable and arrest them. So the letter I wanted to read to you, and this is the third governing body I've read this at. I forgot my printed copy, so I'm reading this off my phone, so bear with me. It's a message from the International Association of Chiefs of Police President Stephen Castevens. He's a chief of police in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. And he sent this out last week to the membership, and it really hit a nerve with me in a positive way, and I've been sharing it with our community. And I preface this reading, and it takes about 5 minutes, by saying it makes me feel more blessed than ever to be here, the director of this department, in a community where we are supported not only by the citizens but by the governing bodies that we serve. And I want you to keep that in mind, how fortunate I think we are as I read this, because every day, and I'm not watching a whole lot of national news right now for a reason, because I find it too distressful, but my news feeds keep telling me about what's going on in some other large cities that's not happening here. So it begins with a quote from Thomas Paine, and I'll read this. "These are the times that try men's souls." In the winter of 1776, Thomas Paine penned these words during a time of profound challenge among colonists fighting for the independence of this great nation. He continued, "The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country, but he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman." Quote is over. The summer soldier, the sunshine patriot, fair weather fan, as we call that person today, are those without the fortitude, the pride, the honor, and the strength to stand up for what is right and just in a free and open society. I find it incumbent upon me, in fact, I find I am compelled by frank and righteous indignation to speak about the vitriol, the violence, and the abject inhumanity being heaped upon the men and women of law enforcement today. Despite my visceral urge not to, I turn on the evening news every night, read the social media posts, see the vulgar and profane anti-police graffiti, and listen to some elected leaders spew disparaging scorn and contempt on the very people who have so selflessly shouldered the mantle of selflessness, sacrifice, and devotion to service and the protection of every citizen of these United States. I wish as they are taunted and attacked by agitators posturing as protesters and stand their ground as bottles, bricks, and Molotov cocktails are hurled at them, I see them aid the very people who are disgorging hatred and brutality upon them. I see toddlers decked out in profanity-laced signs and t-shirts as they trail behind grown adults leading them down a path of hate. These acts are not protective protests. These are assaults on civility in the very fabric of American communities. And I am sick, I am weary, I am enraged, I am insulted, and it must stop. What of these officers in Minnesota and Chicago and Portland? Outrageous, coordinated, directed, and potentially lethal assaults caught on film, not just courtesy of bystanders, but by people who choose to focus on tactics used by officers to defend themselves, rather than identifying and condemning the violent crimes being committed in plain sight. As a chief, I tell them, things will get better. Rise above it. Remember our calling to public service and all the good you do each and every day. Don't let the negative drown out the immense good. I hope and pray that these words will help. I watch the men and women in the thankless job get up each day, put on their uniforms, go out into their communities and seek to make things better, safer, and more just world. We know that our communities are filled with good people, and the violent acts of a few, while extremely disheartening, do not represent the views or beliefs of the whole. And this is important, this paragraph here. The same is true of the policing profession. We recognize that our profession faces many challenges and that some among us, a rare few, should not be wearing the badge. As police leaders, it is our job to hold these officers accountable and weed out those who should not be here. We are actively working to reform our profession, enhance our training and operations, and improve our connections with all members of our communities. Just as unprovoked violence by the police is despicable, so is unprovoked violence against the police. Both should be condemned and equally denounced. There is a peaceful process for speaking your mind and voicing your opinions. What we are witnessing in many communities around the globe is not it. Violence is never the solution. It does nothing to bring us together. It does absolutely nothing to advance positive relationships. It merely increases the divide. As Dr. Martin Luther King pointed out, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. Police officers, like the people they serve, are fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, daughters, and sons. I implore all involved to remember that and to focus on our humanity, even as passions flare. Rather than letting tragedy continue to divide us, this is the time for us to come together as a community and a nation and move forward together. We must stop talking about the theoretical common ground and instead find it. It's not us and them, it's we. And when I receive this, and I receive a lot of messaging all the time from different organizations, there was something about this that really hit me. I sent it out to all of my employees, and I felt like I need to share this with the community. And I share it because I felt like it was balanced. I share it because I felt like, based on what we see in the media, it needed to be shared for those reasons. But as I prefaced my reading of this, I am just so thankful to be here in Riley County, because I feel like we're doing, as a police department, what we need to do to be accountable to the community. You're going to hear more about that tomorrow at the power lunch that I mentioned. And also our officers, they've been, as I mentioned about a month ago, under a lot of stress. It's getting better, but they know that I support them. They know that you and the community support them, and it makes a huge difference. So thank you for indulging me for a few minutes to read this, and I'll stand for any questions about the previous items that I mentioned or this, if you would like.
Anything wrong?
I just commented how critical I've read numerous times that peaceful protest I have no problem with. But when the first brick was thrown and the first bottle of gasoline was lit, it should have ended right then. But due to the political party and all the political stuff involved, it didn't. It's just escalated and escalated and escalated. I don't know where you would put an end to it now, because certain people in our Congress even are fine with it. They won't condemn it. When it's brought up about the destroying public property things, they immediately turn to, well, it's the peaceful rioters. It's not the peaceful protesters, I mean. And so once again, I don't know what the answer is, but you are right. We're all fortunate to live here in Raleigh County and in Manhattan. I don't know what would ever happen if I was around something that was involved like that with destruction of property. But there's no call for that and the violence.
I would agree. We do have a good community, and we do strive to do better. And I'm like Ron, I just don't like to accept it when some people go out of their way to have a violent protest, because that's not what you're supposed to do. And I would give a lot of kudos to you and the police department. They really try hard to make things work and keep the confidence of the local people. They really do. So,
Well, Director Butler, I'm a lot like you. I don't watch national news or mainstream media. I get a lot of mine off of social media, so I get quite a bit of that same negative feedback. But I think I've come to the conclusion here that most of the violent protests, most of that activity is happening in very larger cities that have some other serious social and cultural issues. They'll have to be addressed at some particular point in time as well. And I think that adds to it. I think the stress and anxiety that's caused by other things here in 2020 has kind of added to that. But overall, because I represent things here locally, so I tend to look at it local, I will tell you that I've been impressed by all sides and their ability to work through these challenges that we may or may not have locally, and to do so in a productive and comprehensive manner that is safe and nonviolent. And much like you, it's one of the things I appreciate being in Riley County in this Flint Hills region, because we can't do that. And that's an example of how it can work elsewhere.
Yeah, and I'll conclude. Thank you for your comments. I'll conclude by saying I felt strongly about reading this and have been reading it because I don't take this for granted. I don't take this community or this support for granted because it could easily be different. And I wanted to just publicly thank the other governing bodies, the citizens of Riley County, and you as well for, again, the support that you give us and allowing us to do what we need to do to be an accountable police department and transparent. So it's just a good situation to be in based on what we're seeing. So thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, Cindy.
Time?
It is.
Okay. You thought you were done with me today.
No, I think you're on here again later on too.
I'm on here several times. All right, well, hopefully this topic is a little lighter one, but what I come before you today is discussion on some of our upcoming changes in our elected official positions. As we know, Debbie is Regester is retiring, and so Amy is on the ballot for that position. And then we also, since this is 2020 election year for two of our commissioner spots, our county treasurer, county clerk, and the register of deeds, figured this would be appropriate to address not just the one transitioning position, but several. What I did is prepared the background for the what we've done in the past when it is an election year or a transition with those elected officials. I'm gonna, so I don't feel like I'm yelling at you. We have prior McGrath as well as after McGrath compensation study, which we did do in 2008 that became effective in 2009. So these are in the order as listed. You can see that our pattern and our past practice has been that any of the newly elected or incoming officials do come in at the same salary as the outgoing elected official. There was one time when in 2016 that Commissioner Wilson did decline any increases to his pay, and then back in 14 as well, we had some adjustments. But other than that, it has been the pattern to match those salaries. And so today's discussion identifies that history. And then here we are upon another election year. And then we will have several either continuing on or newly elected, which we know for sure will be the register of deeds. And so I would encourage at this time the board establish a policy that does state that all incoming elected officials will assume that same salary as the departing elected official. With the fiscal impact, the way we do budget is we budget accordingly to the salary at the time of that elected official. So the budget is prepared with that salary placement of that current official. So if it was to change within the next election year, we do have those monies set aside. So with that, I guess I will turn it to you for any discussion.
From my experience on it, we've gone through this a number of times.
We have.
We've reduced the commission salaries 5% already, correct,
Yes.
for 2021?
Well, actually, was it an additional reduction? Yes. Yeah.
Is that,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. That's the minimum that I wanted, and this has all occurred prior to the election, so it could involve me or whoever, so it's independent. The reason I bring it up is in the treasurer, clerk, register of deeds, these are experienced people currently. I can only speak for this year, this election, and I would concur they would come in at the same salary as starting out. The problem with commissioners, and we discussed it before on the McGrath, the low to middle and then the high. At the time, I figured, well, if you want to run that way, I should get the high, and the next commissioner just coming in should get the middle or the low, but that was just facetious tongue in cheek. If we continue with the commission this way, at some point here, every year with the raises, we're going to have the commissioners making the same salary as the department heads, who are presumed to be working every day. Even though our position is full-time, we put a lot of hours in. Of course, that's up to each commissioner, but we put a lot of hours in and appreciate being rewarded for that. But that said, I just think that we need to make some change in the county commission portion so that here in the next 5 or 10 years, it's not exceeding department head salaries. I mean, at some point it's going to happen because, and speaking from this current one, either way, there's going to be some not amateur, but inexperience coming in, and I was when I came in. However, in my case, I brought in a ton of experience in business ownership in road, bridges, construction, in many fields. Because, as a matter of fact, what was my second year in, I saved several $100,000 just on the Casement Outfall project. So I feel that I pretty well covered my salary. That said, I think that the 5% is the best. I think it ought to be a little more, but 5% reduction on the incoming. And then, of course, when they're elected, they can do whatever they want to. So.
Yes, my initial direction on this is to have a developed policy that we don't have to have this discussion every time, was kind of my thoughts. But obviously, that's just how I'm presenting it.
Sure.
So this is definitely your decision and your discussion on how you want to go forward.
Go.
Well, and just on that, there actually is a developed policy as recommended by McGrath. The board has just never followed it. And so
Correct.
that's the reason we're here. There actually is a developed policy on it. They kind of went with it a couple of times, but then kind of rescinded it. And so that's, I think, the reason Cindy's here. Or you guys have free authority to develop some other kind of policy as well.
In terms of elected board of commission, everybody's responsibility is still the same, correct? Representing a certain amount of population of each specific district, elected by the whole of that particular district. That's the challenging part with this. I know it's been discussed in the past. I think, at least for the 2020 year, we've made a 5% reduction due to budgetary issues. So there's already a reduction in place. That's going to be straight across the board.
And that's with all three commissioners.
Right.
Yep.
I would err of trying to do them in staggered groups. If you need to make a full reduction of some sort, that's one thing. The other ones, and particularly this case, I think Amy is fully qualified. Worked under Debbie long enough. I don't have any problems with continuing at that same particular salary at this point in time. I think when you turn to the commissioners, they're elected by the whole of the people with all these things that were already in place, already in mind. So I think keeping it even and consistent is fine. Developing a policy of what increases should be throughout that particular 2-year cycle, I think is still up for discussion. I think it should be a little bit more rigorous probably than what it is to achieve raises after said fact. But I do think they need to be across the board even.
I'm fine with just leaving it like it is. We have the 5% reduction currently for the 3 commissioners starting 2021. And let the next commission board make that determination on in the future. But for right now, I would agree with the other elected officials coming in at the current salary level of the person leaving.
I'm of the same mind. I agree with John, and I agree with him on it. Probably we shouldn't be making as much as the directors, period. Okay? Because all combined together, it's a pretty good sum. And but we'll leave it like it is and let the next commission worry about it.
So do we want to, by just thinking ahead, by consensus, do we want to establish a resolution that states any incoming elected officials, excluding the commission, to be coming in as the same salary as the departing one? That it's an official policy, or are you not?
Well, what do
saying?
you
I would
depend-
word it coming in as the salary that has been established for 2021.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
But for any
Well,
election year, I don't want to
but
identify it as.
You may have an outgoing commissioner that's not as up to date with stuff, and you have another one that's extremely qualified. So how would you?
Yeah, and
That one, it would be a difficult thing. So I'm for leaving it that they do come in. And my always thing was, if you win, you're qualified. But not have ours as extreme, and not maybe this one not go up percent-wise like the directors do. And that was part of my problem, is I didn't think we should get the same percent. We have a lot of power, but
I think
we shouldn't get the same percent as the directors do.
I think when the Board of Commissioners is the one that's developing salaries, including its own, there needs to be a added layer of process as to why we should or shouldn't have
Yeah.
raises in a given particular year, depending on what the circumstances are. That needs to be separate, in my opinion, than the other elected officials in the other
Okay,
departments.
and that's where I was
Right,
going with
okay,
that.
yeah.
I was doing register deeds, treasurer, clerk, and
Yeah.
attorney as, of
There-
course, we know the
there's-
attorney can set his salaries for any of his attorney staff, so he does have another
He
level,
does have
basically.
another level, and
And
you
but
have,
if
you have to have
identify-
expertise to take their jobs. Okay,
Yeah.
we don't have to have expertise, just win votes.
So if we prepare a resolution for the treasurer, clerk, register deeds and attorney that says that the incoming would assume the outgoing salaries,
Yes, yes,
and then exclude you from that because you will determine
right.
your salaries
That's correct.
as you feel appropriate.
Mhm.
So is that where we want to go in this process? Is that a
I
good?
think that would be, but always making sure that ours does not equal or exceed I mean, we're at a certain point. There's no way that individually we can have the expertise that they have in their field, so.
How does that apply each year when the commission sets the budget for the following year? And so it turns out to be an election year or somebody coming in, I mean, so they're gonna be setting a salary. Well, I think that the resolution ought to be that the incoming receive the salary as set
By the
by the
previous,
commission for the year that they'll be coming in. I mean, that's,
through the budget process.
you know, I mean, that's, that way you don't tie their hands. I mean, they, when they set budgets, so I don't think we need to handicap any future commissioners. But I do agree it shouldn't be a decrease for each position just based on experience. It's gonna be based on what they set for the budget, so they may one year allow cost of living, and they have step increases, and then that's what the new one will be coming in at. But this way they're not tied to, I mean, I guess it still be the same wording, you're gonna get what the, well, not necessarily, they'll be out and going, they would need to accept whatever the county commission sets as the budget for the year they're coming into office.
It would be as the motion Cindy states, we just eliminate, in the commission agenda report, we just eliminate Board of County Commissioners from there.
Mhm.
The commission
Yep.
has the discretion to set the board salary however they like each year.
And this is a pretty good example of that case. We made a 5% reduction in our own salary, nobody else. And so whoever takes over next year and,
You know, they could double the salary if they,
well, not for 2021 then. That's already been established.
And speaking frankly, I mean, honestly, a new board could change any of it. Doesn't come on by change, passing another resolution.
do we have it now?
Okay. So to recap, as it stated, the recommendation and possible motion is to move to approve a policy for each election year that establishes the incoming elected official to assume that same salary as the departing elected official. So this would include the elected officials of the attorney, clerk, registered deeds, and treasurer. And then do we want to identify the commissioners
Separate.
would be set per the guidelines of the established budget for that incoming year.
Right, right.
And then it's up to, I don't know how to word all that, but it's up to
Right.
them,
Yeah,
then
to,
as the new elected board to finalize their wages.
yeah,
The new elected board,
no, the previous
The previous, so you don't
year,
want to put that last part in it,
Okay,
so it
but-
would
but
only
what-
be determined by what's,
whatever
Put in
this
the budget.
board at the time they made the budget,
Okay.
that's what the next one gets, okay?
okay,
right,
Because they could lower it, this could be lowered, and,
Yeah.
and you'll always have one or two that remain on it, okay? And that's what they get the following year.
but as Rich commented, the new incoming elected board could make changes to that if they chose to do so.
Yeah,
right, there's no way we can solidify
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it looks like going through all this, that's kind of gone back and forth through the years
It has.
anyway, and it probably will continue, and that's just kind of how the process is.
Why we have the discussion. So if I could get a motion on that first part that Cindy just read through about all the other elected officials.
and that was move to approve a policy for each election year that establishes the incoming elected official to assume the same salary as the departing elected official for the county attorney, clerk, registered deeds, and treasurer.
motion made.
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
And then do we want to go ahead and do a second motion to establish the salary of the,
No, it's
Of the-
already
of the-
set,
of the-
we're only,
It's already
It's
set.
already
it's already
done,
set, so
because
we don't want
it's in the
to-
budget, the budget
Okay.
we
determines
can't
that.
influence the future one, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to address that at all.
Well, it's been addressed through the budget. Their
Through the
salary
budget.
is what the salary resolution
Yeah,
says.
right.
I mean, you're gonna present a salary
Yeah.
resolution for 2021, and it'll be based on instructed for the budget
Through the budget
of the
process.
5%
Okay.
reduction of the county commissioners.
Okay, so no other second motion is needed.
So might not, if you don't mind, when you're departing projects, get that resolution ready with those correct numbers.
I'm already on it. It's already basically done.
Now you're gonna realize she's leaving.
And I know Tammy's aware of those figures as well, so.
Yeah, have those prepared and but all ready to go. Okay,
Thanks,
I
Cindy.
believe
Thank
that's
you.
all I needed for this one.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Do we want to, Clancy's motion, we may not have enough time to get Elena in there, I don't know.
How much time are you gonna need, Clancy?
Keep it the same as you start on the agenda. Back into the letter.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
No,
Thank you.
So you want to have the executive session right now? Okay.
Okay, I move the county commission, including Chairman Rodriguez, Commissioner Ford, and Commissioner Wells, recess into executive session on a performance matter involving non-elected personnel, an exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act to protect the privacy of the employee for the purposes of consultation with Clancy Holman, Raleigh County Counselor, and Cindy Vellante, Human Resource Manager / Deputy Clerk. The open meeting to resume in the county commission chamber at 11 a.m.
All in favor?
Aye.
you're muted.
Okay. I move the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session.
All in favor?
I move that I move the record reflect no binding action was taken during the executive session.
All in favor?
Aye. Remove that the Board of County Commission, including Chairman Rodriguez, Commissioner Ford, and Commissioner Wells, recess into executive session on a performance matter involving non-elected personnel, an exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act to protect the privacy of the employee for purpose of consultation with Clancy Holman, Riley County Counselor, and Cindy Vellante, Human Resource Manager / Deputy Clerk. The open meeting to resume the County Commission chamber at,
You want 11:15?
let's do 11:15
Okay,
a.m.
all in favor?
Aye. Okay, I move the Board of County Commissioners come out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move that the record reflect action shall be taken consistent with consensus reached in executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And running a little bit late, but I guess it'll be Atlanta.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, today we thought we would talk a little bit about our latest project, and that is a virtual tour of the Goodnoe House State Historic Site. So as we are continuing to adapt to these recent changes with the ongoing pandemic, the Riley County Historical Museum has been looking for opportunities to share Riley County history through virtual experiences. So this is especially important as we look for ways to support our local schools and for those who will be teaching at home this fall to provide meaningful educational experiences that will connect students with local history. We are really missing our kids right now. Normally we have kids visit in the summer and in the fall, and we will not be able to do that. So one project that we have completed so far is this virtual tour of the Goodnoe House State Historic Site. This is the original home of Isaac and Ellen Goodnoe, built in 1861. So the Goodnoe House is located right across the driveway from the Riley County Historical Museum, and it tells the important story of Isaac and Ellen Goodnoe, who settled in Riley County in 1855 to support the Free State cause here in Kansas. Isaac also served as one of the original founders of the college that became Kansas State University. So it is a very important part of our history here in Riley County. So of course, the Goodnoe House is best experienced in person, where you can actually go into the home, hear the creaking floors. But it is working to, when we develop these online materials, the tour of the home that allows the viewer to have an in-depth look at the Goodnoe's life. This website documents each room in the home and highlights the objects that help tell the story of the Goodnoes in Riley County. So on this website, we wanted to not only include a tour of the home, but also provide historical context to the Goodnoe's history, which includes early territorial history, information on Bluemont Central College, and links to primary sources such as Isaac's diary. So the website up here, you can see there is a way to instantly access a tour of the home. And as I mentioned, it documents the location and walks you through every step as we would take anybody who is visiting on a tour. So our goal is to provide this for students that will also help complement what teachers are doing, whether it is in the classroom or it's something that teachers or parents can do at home. So our goal is to continue working with teachers and local. We have a group organized of informal educators in the Manhattan area to work with teachers to provide other opportunities for students to learn about local history. So as I mentioned, history on the family. Isaac Goodnoe, primary source material, so students can go right to that. As I mentioned, hopefully this will be a benefit to both students and teachers. We've also included a few additional resources because for students like fun things too, to help them learn. So we do have some coloring pages that we have created too for students. So you can see they can color the Goodnoe House. They can also play Territorial Kansas Jeopardy. So anybody can get on there if you want to play solo, or you can get a team together to play Kansas Territorial Jeopardy.
I like that.
So this website, it is a free platform to create. So we were able to do that at no cost. And it can be found at goodnoehousevirtualtour.weebly.com. We always welcome any suggestions or feedbacks that you may have, and we very much thank you for letting us share this latest project with you this morning.
Whoever decides to color those pictures, I hope they're good, because boy, staying in the line's not gonna be easy on that one.
No, some of them, and for this one, for example, this is an artifact that is in the home. This was created by Isaac and Ellen's niece, Harriet, and it's made out of some of their geological specimens, and it is in a window hanging. So we tried to connect those coloring pages to at least an object that is found in the home.
Good deal.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Tammy, you're up.
Good morning.
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 I should be able to get you back online with your time schedule here.
Okay.
It is relatively brief this morning on the CARES funding, and it isn't an actual recommendation. That is to be on Thursday. We will meet with the consultant today to finalize our plans for what we're looking at and what we're considering, and in case there's any additional information we need to consider before we make that decision. So we'll just let you know that we will be here on Thursday, and the public welcome to watch online or come in person, as I'm sure there are several of them that will have an expectation as far as timelines and when this is going to need to be finalized prior to August 15th. I don't even know what to tell you other than that we specifically don't have a direction at this point, 100%, just preliminary. And the list just keeps getting longer because people just keep contacting us.
But at this point in time, how can the list get longer if, I mean, are we talking second round at this point in time, or? I mean, the application process has been cut off, correct?
It's been cut off, but people are still contacting us and wanting. In fact, we got information from the school district, Wamego School District, asking for potential CARES funding because Pot County directed them to Riley County for their students that come from Riley County. And if you remember right, we did contact Potawatomi County to see if they wanted to collaborate on anything with that, and they said no. So I found it interesting that they contacted us and sent the school district to us directly when they did not want to fund anything with Riley County.
Right, I mean, the reciprocal would be the number of 383 students they have over there.
Yeah, particularly Rock Creek, and I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still receiving a lot of information as far as criteria that we've requested, just so that it will help make sure that the direction we're going makes sense.
Okay.
And John, you reiterated, what could be changing at this point in time. A lot of it is, the consultants continuing to evaluate the second round also.
Sure,
And,
sure.
part of the equation is okay, do the school districts and do the higher levels of education have additional funding coming where other groups that are in this round one don't have additional funding coming. So that's kind of the balancing act to try and figure out. Plus, some of those have already received a substantial amount, and so not as clear cut as you would like it.
No, and I get that, but at some point in time, the information for the first round here has to kind of cease, and we kind of need to work with everything that's there. So.
The other thing to keep in mind is we are pushing to have an MOU that will be available to the entities that we recommend you fund, for the simple fact that, as you heard me conversing with our auditor this morning, because we're going to be subject to an audit of anything that we give out, those entities under us have to get that information to us to provide to not only our auditor, but also to the state level. So, and we've had questions from some of these entities wanting to know what they're going to have to provide us. Well, they've all been through single audits because largely they're municipalities that are required. And so they know what the criteria is. It's no different for us asking for that information than what they would provide if they had a single audit.
Okay.
So just maybe a shorter timeline provided.
Okay. Ron, you got any questions?
No, sure don't.
Thursday will be the day.
May be the day, okay.
It was coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do what we can.
11:45, gentlemen, we have a discussion of Health Order 16 work session. Gentlemen has one document that all three of you missed one, and then only one that you didn't initial there.
Oh, I bet you just now put the stickers on.
I think that's what they did to us because we all missed it. So I'm not going to argue with you on that.
I'm pretty sure
I think staff pulled a fast one on us there.
I do too.
Somebody in staff owes us $20.
I don't see how we missed it.
Got it now, and that's the important part.
I never can remember.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pretty hot, wasn't it? It was hot.
So how far are you on the cabinets?
Oh, so I got the range hood, got the range wired up. We got gas line on the range yet. Just probably this afternoon or tomorrow, I'll start the oven cabinet and the other wall, which fairly short set of cabinets, so, and then I'll have the island, so. I don't know.
I remodeled the house that they did exactly what you said you were not to do, and that was cut right through one of the studs to get the range hood bent out.
Oh, since we built the house, it's got the 5-ply, half-inch square plywood boxing, and And even on the bearing wall, I could go down and take 8, 10 foot basic wall out and it wouldn't even sag. Normally, what I would do in that situation was cut the stud and then just put a 2x4 header across top and bottom, just because. If I didn't want to go that much work and then disturb the insulation or anything, but it's really not a problem, one stud.
I just don't like it.
No, I don't either, that's why I went around it. Kind of a personal thing, you know, leaves the integrity alone and. No, the original, we just bent it in the attic. And that's the way most of them done back then, and it's not right. Some of my son says, well, Mom used it for 50 years that way, well, just back then.
Right.
Then it could have gone straight up out the roof. I don't want to put holes in the roof.
No, I don't like putting holes in roofs.
I remember every time we built a house, and they wanted a skylight. Well, our old residents, he'd say, why would you want to put a hole in a perfectly good roof?
Skylights are notorious for problems also.
It wasn't long, and we get called back to leaks.
Yeah. Notorious.
No, I got to thinking, as I kind of calmed down a little bit when I'm frustrated. You know, at the pantry, yesterday I put all the shelves in the pantry, go to the pantry, what else? You know, large range of, anyway, then it dawned on me. Plumber, electrician, tinner, sheet rocker, insulator, I mean.
If you could hurry up and get the insulator done so the sheetrocker could get on it.
No, and then I got to thinking, well, this, what else you got to do wrong? You have to drag race, I mean, it's got a few things I want to switch around on the car, but I do that this winter. So.
Did the guy ever come up and pick up the other car yet?
Not yet. If I'd left the tag on, and insurance, I'd pull out on Anderson there and just do a smoky burnout for a block.
Make sure it's running right.
It runs good. One day I took both of them up, parked in the driveway, nice beautiful day out. It was time to put them back, like I had Mary drive the red one and I hopped in the hot rod. You know, saw a car coming there, so I fired her up and rushed for gas, you know. It's one of those little buzz bombs, and so he goes by going, I got more cubic inches in one cylinder. You know, but that's fun. No, I like to drive it. A couple times I thought about giving him his money back, keeping leave it, but I just I think what's going on, it might be another year, and it's not going to get better just sitting there.
Right.
But the red one, I can keep it. And actually the red one, I'm just sure will run as fast as blue ones. So like when the strips do open, why I'll just use it. This winter, I'll put that 750 volt transmission behind that red one and then change swap the 430 gear into it. That's harder. I don't know if it'll lift the wheels, but it, sure. I know last couple of years I had trouble sliding all over the place, but once it's halfway down the track and then I stand on it. Like on my buddies, but then that thing accelerates. And now if I can do it from the start.
Right.
Funny thing of it is, There's a little boy out there, I don't know him personally. Big old boy, he's got an old, like a 71 or 2 Chevelle. And when I first took the car out there, I had some pretty big tires on it. And I didn't know they don't like that traction pump. And so first 2 or 3 passes, it's spinning. It's just a second. That accelerated, so yeah, I could lose it real quick, and just get out of it. Apparently, he must have been jealous, because why do you want to watch him ride? You get about halfway down, and his whole car going like this. What you don't know is, mine, the rear end with no traction was good. The front end was good, because he put this with the steering wheel.
Work doing.
I laughed, every time down the
How
track.
Florence doing? Is it picking up again or is it not picking up?
In some areas, it's picking up. Much like a lot of companies, we're dealing with supply changes in supply chains and broken supply chains, trying to get stuff out, trying to get stuff in. I work on the electronic side, so it hasn't picked up quite the way I thought, but I think this is the lull between that storm. I think the interesting thing this year is hurricane season.
Yeah.
Every time we have a hurricane or a major tropical storm, the United States Postal Department replaces all of the postal infrastructure after that.
In that area.
Yeah, so every year around this time through September, sometimes early October, we see a boost in a couple other departments that make those for that reason. So, and this year has been a pretty active year so far, so.
No major tornadoes.
No. I've stayed pretty busy since March. Usually there's a little bit of lull in March, and we usually get to about September, October, and it kind of starts to slow down. And so I don't see it happening. Done a good job trying to get everybody spaced out over 2 shifts and things in place to manage the pandemic from the business side, which has been pretty impressive.
I remember that.
And we're hiring.
Not a bad idea. Yeah.
We're hiring. That's always a good thing.
They go on pickup.
Yes.
Slow, he's been under the weather, the guy that's
Yeah.
been doing the bulk of the work on it.
I'll be
So
like, whew, really.
Well, you don't tell me that now, because now I'm gonna start thinking about it.
Yeah, well, if you
Yeah.
don't like it, then that just means we have to go back to the drawing.
Right,
board.
right. Yeah.
You've had a lot of drawing board sessions already.
I tell you, I had my discussions with James on Friday over the spark funding at the state level for the second round. I didn't get the indication that they fully know what they want to do with all of it yet. That's gonna be the next thing on the horizon, maybe not specifically for us and how we allocate it, but how it comes in and what we can do with it, I would assume, but.
I think it's more just this timeline that, I mean, honestly, it's very unreasonable
Yeah.
timeline to
Yeah.
determine how to do this and make sure you have all this documentation they're wanting by August 15th.
Right.
But we're working as hard as we can to get it there.
I'll be interested to see the county by county approach when it's all said and done. How they work through it, or if they work through it for that matter, and how much of those funds get relegated someplace else because they didn't get appropriated properly, or, in the manner in which they were intended, and what those audit processes will look like, from that perspective. That's down the road, obviously. Obviously, my concern is Riley County and the region at this point in time, but still.
Well, Shiloh was just saying Douglas County had some issues with their distribution
Yeah.
recommendation.
I was told by a buddy of mine, Ellis County struggling with theirs too, so.
Well, everyone's gonna have a different opinion on why didn't you give this to this organization, or why did you give that to
Sure.
that? Like I said, the whole definition of fair and what's important to one person isn't important to another. It's difficult.
Agreed.
And if you do it as as simple as just based on population, and some of the small cities get such a large amount, they don't even want a minute fraction of that. They wouldn't know what to do with it if you gave it to them, then they can turn it back because they don't have the expenditures, so.
Yeah, they
Those
definitely.
taking the easy way out on that, I think are gonna have problems as well.
For sure on some of them.
And maybe that's why a couple of the other municipalities here didn't want to mess with it, because they really didn't know how to set it up. And
Well, that's just it, they don't have the staff, those
Yeah,
small cities,
right.
the closest one would have.
and they deal with federal stuff
that's
sometimes
pushing
off
it.
and on themselves, and it's just becomes very cumbersome for them. So they just kind of will manage with what we got.
Well, and that's the thing, you have so many different types of entities that are getting different types of funding at different times, and,
Yeah.
and they have to have them spent at different times, so for us to try to figure out how to make that as consistent and equitable as possible is
A nightmare.
impossible.
A nightmare at best. Yeah.
Especially when the rules aren't in play yet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still rules coming down with this next stimulus
I know.
package that is going to have
That
an effect
now
on us.
basically went to an executive order because they can't even figure out how to service the American people during a pandemic. That's how divided it is. And I'm not pointing fingers at one group or one party or one thing. It's just amazing how much of a divide there is there.
And it's not based on what they really feel is best. It's based on my way, your way. It's not
Right.
a collaboration
No.
at all.
Nope.
It's like two bulls hitting heads and they refuse to give.
It's like KDHE's little gaffe over the weekend on the,
Which one? There was two.
on the counties with masks, counties without.
The data that they presented on both accounts were right. It's just how they presented that exactly. They changed the graphing a little bit over there to kind of sway it. And you can do that. That's why data, that's why polling, that's why scientific data can always be misconstrued, because it could always be one way or the other. So.
Could be made accurate anyway, because you've got way too many counties with different varying populations and varying amounts of disease, pandemic in the county, and, it's. Take a county with no COVID, and they all wear a mask, well, that's gonna look pretty darn good,
Yeah.
pretty effective,
100% rate. One of the things that stood out to me on the webinar, the second webinar I was on Thursday, was there was discussion of, there's other places around the county that have been, country, not county, that have been dealing with this for a month, 2 months longer than even we have. And they're starting to have a strain for resources because of lockdowns, restrictions, everything else really restricted that funding. And they still have an adamant amount of cases, regardless of those regulations. And it's not just masks either. So there's no real, I think, adequate or proper way of going about this that you can say this definitively works.
Unless you lock everybody in their house for 14 days and no one gets to go out at all.
Yeah.
Which is not reasonable.
No. But then you have those asymptomatic people that maybe after that 14 period of days still is. So it'd probably have to be closer to a month to be efficient. Didn't we technically already do that?
It felt like it.
Yeah.
After this, you'll be wanting the regular flu back.
All right. Yes, you're on, Clancy.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Clancy Holman, Riley County Councilor. During last Thursday's discussion, actually during public comment, the board made a request that Order 16, Local Order 16 issued by our local health officer, be reviewed today. The board had was responding to some comments that were made by members of the public during that meeting. And so it's before you today for any discussion. This is a work session, so it's for purposes of your discussion among members of the board, your discussions and questions to staff, the health department, and basically kind of head any way you want to. We just got to hear from any direction you particularly want to give, any concerns you want to hear about Order 16, because as you know, we're 216. We've made it to 16. There are going to be more local health orders, and that's just going to happen unless the pandemic suddenly ends. Order 17 is the next one that's teed up right now, but it has not been generated. It has not been completely developed. Just kind of wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on Order 16 as you see it. I do want to point out one thing. I've had a discussion with an attorney who's not representing anybody locally right now with regard to Order 16. We had a very good discussion about a couple of different provisions, and they all bore in on one section of the order. I just want to do this to show you a response that I'm prepared to recommend to those concerns that were raised. These deal with Section 2B, and specifically 2B, Section 1, beginning there. And this is on the business restrictions in Order 16. That is not the original language that was in the order. In working with this other attorney, had some concerns because his perception, and the perception probably some of the people he was talking about, was that the screening that's done in Order 16, the misperception that it turns out to be that those documents that are generated, Appendix A, for the screening purposes at the beginning of each shift, that those were being used or intended to be used for contact tracing. In talking with Julie Gibbs, our local health officer last week, I actually learned that, well, that's not what they're being used for. And basically, this is kind of an ability for the restaurant to protect itself, basically, for management to know, do they have an employee on site that has symptoms and needs to be given the opportunity to go through and screen themselves. So the concern was it was not voluntary, and tangled with that, I guess, a little bit, the fear that it would be used for contact tracing. And talking with Julie, our local health officer, she said, absolutely not. We don't even want those forms. And they're for the use only of the business. And the way she described to me they're being used, when the single person there's only one person from the health department, as I understand it, that has been going around and kind of talking to restaurants and bars. And what they do is ask, are you doing the screening? And if that local business then waves that stack of paper at them and says, yes, we are doing it, it doesn't go any further than that. There's nothing. And if it did, if they said, no, we're not doing it, then there would just be a conversation. Well, here's why it's in that version of the order. It said it had to be done.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess my question then becomes of that is if there's no particular purpose for it, then what makes the business either want to or not want to do it at this point?
I probably was unclear. I didn't say there was no purpose. I said it was not for the purpose that the misperception.
Right, I got you there. Okay.
So that's very different. And the purpose is, again, to protect basically the owner or operator management of that business. Okay. So they know that they may have somebody who needs to possibly leave work and self-quarantine. Or if they go through Appendix A, the voluntary sheet, and that's the person filling it out. It's not the business.
Right.
So it is voluntary, but it does have, much like with the mask, with regard to the mask requirement in the county, is just a recommendation of the local order. All right. I say requirement. It's not a requirement in the unincorporated area, the small cities. It is a strong recommendation. So what we came up with in working with this other lawyer, he raised some good points about how if he was perceiving it that way and some of his some of the people he's talking to were perceiving it that way, then it probably made sense to address it in a way that still allows what the local health officer wants to have happen here. And so we came up with this language. This is not something that needs necessarily to be decided today, but I just want to show you that we are willing to look at concerns. And as long as it still carries out the purpose of public health in the order, there will occasionally be room for some movement on this. What we've got now is just language that says it's in 2B1, it is strongly recommended that all restaurants and bars screen each employee prior to each shift. It is strongly recommended. Any such screening includes asking about symptoms, travel, and checking temperatures. And then it says, please use Appendix A for such screening. And let me emphasize again, this is not how Order 16 now reads. This is simply a draft, as this document says. It's for discussion purposes. And then when you go to Appendix A to look at the form itself that is talked about. One of the changes is at the very top. We made clear at the request of this attorney I was talking with, and again, it was a good discussion, voluntary employee health screening. And then the rest of this, what we've got is we made clear in the second new sentence that the employees filling out the form, you are not required to provide this completed form to your supervisor or employer. And then another change we made in this is that in the far right vertical column, what it says is, it used to say initials over here. We removed that. There's no reason to have a sign off because we're not going to use this. The health department never has been using it for contact tracing, never has been using it for that purpose. And so there's no reason to have initials on it. But again, having heard that there was that misperception and yet being able to still use a form that is useful to businesses and that they can use to help themselves and to help their employees. I told the attorney, I can recommend that if that's what the Board of Health or what our local health officer wants to do in either a change. And here, let me touch on one thing. We talked about changes to Order 16. If we get an Order 17 coming down the pike, I would suggest that the changes that you want to make, it's just a recommendation, you can do as you wish. You could have an amended Order 16 go out, but then it's immediately going to be followed probably by Order 17. And then people conceivably are going to be looking at 3 different orders to try and figure out what the rules are. The reason these orders are in the sequence they are right now, and the reason we're where we are right now with regard to 16 orders, each one of which has repealed the previous order, so that people have one document they can go to and they know what the rules are. That's the concept. So just something to think about. But I just wanted to throw that out there as a change that was proposed by an attorney who was looking at it and saying, hey, here's what I'm hearing, here's what the concerns are. I had to admit, if that's a misperception, and if we can tighten it down so it actually says better what really is being done, then it needs to be done.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. So I throw that out there if you're concerned with that. I'd open it up any way you would like us to go. You may discuss this obviously among yourselves, you can ask questions of staff. If you ask me anything difficult, I'm immediately going to run away and have Julie come on.
I think it's much better.
I think, given the dynamics of people coming back into town and everything else that's occurring, I think making this amendment now, even before local order 17 would be good. I think I should be probably addressed, both for clarification purposes and just for general usage.
Certainly
make a motion to that.
Do if that's what you want to do.
Is that what we need to do? Make a motion to do it? I mean, is that what you're thinking, Julie?
Well, I was originally thinking we just do an Order 17 to include all of the changes. And
Okay.
that way it wouldn't be
Okay,
so
so what is your timeline for 17? Just so
quickly
I'm
as
aware.
we can.
Quickly as you can.
Would it be this week?
Yes.
Presumably?
Yep.
Barring something.
Okay.
And probably, I assume near the end of the week?
Probably.
By the time you meet with command staff, the EOC gets a chance to just go back.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I guess while we're here and we're discussing 17, what major changes, other than maybe this, are we looking at for 17?
Told you I was gonna run away.
Yeah.
I'd already pushed you to the side anyway, so probably.
There was some language in the first part of this in the mass gatherings that we were going to change to some simple language, but pretty much everything else would stay the same, of course, with this amendment. And anything else that we discussed maybe with the
Right.
subcommittee that we're putting together. Taking them back.
Okay. I think this is a needed, needed amendment process and for what we're trying to accomplish both in the short and probably longer term. I'm aware of some other businesses outside of the restaurant and bar sectors that are kind of doing something similar with this as well. So it's not completely focused in on one part. I think it's another solid way of trying to mitigate some factors to keep some other difficult things from having to happen, hopefully down the road.
You okay with that, Ron?
Mhm.
You need a consensus or you need a motion?
I prefer a motion. I think.
So if that's going to be in 17, it's just going to be in 17. Do we need a motion for that?
No, I thought maybe.
Yeah, are we wanting to do it for the current order or just have her wait and place that in 17? Because that changes the dynamic.
But, you know, and you want to get the 17 out, when do you want to actually have it out?
Maybe the way to answer that is this. If the concern primarily is about that, what I just showed you, since they're already doing that, in other words, they're not using the current language that's in 16 for contact tracing.
Okay.
So that's a possibility. I just want to tell you that. That's not necessary to make that change to make that happen. But if you want an amended order 16, I would prefer you do a motion to ask for an amended order 16.
I think if we had to address any legal concerns about that, I think having it actually worded properly in 16 would be of a benefit. That's
up to you. As I said, this was because the existing language was misperceived. The existing language does not say it will be used for contact tracing.
That's right.
It does not. But the perception was by some that that's what it was. But they weren't doing that. And we had no intention of doing it. This simply clarifies it. And so I just want to make that clear. You will get that in 17. You've got it now on this point. It's already in place. Not the language, but the way that they're using that information. And it does not, it's currently not, it is styled. Let me look at the language. I want to speak here. Too many words, 16. Yeah, currently, the language is mandatory in number 1. So it does say all restaurants and bars currently, order 16, section 2B, small 1, or excuse me, 2B, number 1. All restaurants and bars shall screen each employee prior to each shift. So that would need to be changed if you want it amended before order 17 comes out. If you think that's worth doing, that's up to you. You would have to make it clear that it's voluntary, you would have to change that language. And it would require either 17 immediately or an amendment to 16. What won't change is if the primary objection that some have is that, hey, this shouldn't be used for contact tracing. It isn't, and it isn't. Even though it talks about record keeping, records and evidence will be available to Raleigh County Health Department staff upon request. They're not doing that. It just depends on how comfortable you are.
I'm comfortable with it being worded properly in the fashion in which it's being used.
Okay.
At the point in time it's being used. So if you need to make a motion.
So an amended order 16.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we amend order 16 to include the changes in, was that 2?
Well, the changes discussed today.
Okay, changes discussed today and the current order.
And
All in favor?
so it will read as I showed you put on the screen.
Okay.
With the drone.
Good.
They gonna cause any trouble, CNC or anything? Okay. I'll get it drawn up.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you.
Now, were there other things in 16 you wanted to
No.
address? And we'll cut off the discussion.
I think we're fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 15, gentlemen, we got Cindy Vontae, FFCRA, and school reopenings.
And this is one I hadn't even considered until it was brought up, and I thought, yeah, that's a good catch.
It was brought to our attention already with some parents. So,
Which I am not, which means that's probably why I didn't think about it to begin with.
yeah. And I know we have at least one other department head coming, so I'm sure we'll need to wait. Last day. Yeah, I never did make it. I thought assumptions. I went by a couple times and it was pretty busy.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So, whatever. Fine. No.
I've been trained by other people, you see, that's.
It's been a long day for you guys this morning.
Actually, this seems almost normal, almost, with interviews and everything else we've done here in recent times.
Okay. Didn't talk long enough.
Says who? I wasn't saying me necessarily, I was just saying says who.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, I think you got the bulk of the talking done.
I do that sometimes.
I know a long time.
Yeah.
Rich, is Riley going back 5 days a week, or
Huh?
is Riley School District going back 5 days a week?
I'm not 100% sure what their plan is.
As of right now.
Is it?
My wife just glad she retired.
Huh?
Like I said, my wife is glad she retired.
Mm.
She'd put it in at the start of the year, this was her last year. We've been talking to a few teachers. They're all trying to figure it out.
I think it'll be rather fluid, like everyone.
Yep.
Well, it sounds pretty much official that the Big Ten and the Pac-10 and Pac-12 are gonna announce tomorrow cancellation of football.
Oh, really? Really? That's the
That's what
latest,
sources are saying.
that's the latest scoop on social media.
Yep,
You're gonna cancel it?
Pac-12 and Big Ten, but I don't see how you're gonna move forward with the other conferences if those two conferences aren't part of it. I mean, that's both Power Five.
Your championship.
Your Michigans, your Ohio States, your, it's gonna be a horrible fall.
A long, slow fall.
Yeah.
They didn't want to do what the baseball's doing and have the cutouts sitting in the stands and.
I think part of it is addressed just the student athletes being in school, and then part of athletics at the same time is probably just too much, I guess. The NBA is doing pretty good with this bubble scenario. It's something I'll never get comfortable with, I don't think, but it seems to be working. Seems to be working at baseball's got whatever they've got figured out. Seems to be working at least momentarily. And I haven't got a definitive, the NFL isn't going to make some changes or whatnot either. I mean, camp just started opening up for them. There's no preseason this year, which is something that we're going to probably do anyway. But I don't know if that mid-September start's going to work for them yet either. I don't know.
Just getting exhausting.
It really is. It really is.
You have no other reason to watch TV anymore.
Not really. The only real reason why I have a streaming service too is for sports. If I don't have that, I might as well cancel it.
All the money you'll be saving.
Right. No need for it. Cable about 3 years ago, something like that. That was always my vice, is I like sports, live sports. I'm gonna have it. There's no reason.
There'll be lots of reruns of old sports games this year.
Yeah.
I'm not much into watching those.
No.
not when I know the outcome,
right?
Not studying for any reason.
not the same as, cooking up all those hors d'oeuvres and everything prior to the big game.
Yeah, that's right.
Developing a fantasy league squad and 2 fantasy league squads that we used to do, that's probably out. For NFL, that makes it a little bit more interesting when you've got something vested there, but that ain't gonna happen this year. Make any sense to do it.
We have a Junction City rookie
Yeah.
on the field.
But unfortunately, he got injured Friday. And he's
Oh,
on,
I know.
he's on the disabled list, so we'll see how that works out. They got to trim the squads down to some number here shortly too, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I was happy for him. Of course, I'm MHS, I shouldn't be, but local guy, I'll root for him.
We could get away with it a little bit starting earlier before, but now we have the virtual, we have to wait.
Yeah, I know. I've got at least one other department, and that's what I was looking to see if they were on it. Will be Zoom in or in person?
Gonna have intergovernmental meeting at the Holiday Inns next time? Is that all virtual now too also? Okay. Well, I thought they were talking about what I saw the email said, meet in in that one room down where we always meet.
No, I got a Zoom link. I believe that's
Okay,
gonna
because
be.
that's what they said on there.
No, that was for a doodle poll, so you can figure out what day we want to change it for Potawatomi County. Because they apparently can't meet at that time on Mondays. And none of the other days work for me because it rolls right into my work schedule. So if they change it, I guess I won't be going to intergovernmentals anymore. What's it doing outside? Is it trying to rain still or?
It was earlier.
Just cloudy.
Just cloudy.
Thundered, but not as dark as
Maybe this evening, saying.
Bit of rain. It'd be nice if we keep it kind of cool this week, but I guess we really haven't had that bad of a summer, so I guess I'll deal with it.
Yeah, the cool front's just to the northwest of us a little, just not gonna make it down to us.
Plus, this is saying the low to mid 80s next week, so a little bit of a reprieve. I don't
Okay,
think-
I guess they left that, as it says down here, Holiday Inn, where, I guess they just left that from the last
Yeah.
time we
Yeah.
used to do it. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard any word about getting any of those meetings back together anytime in the near future.
I wouldn't anticipate them for the rest of the year. That's just,
Maybe it happen next year,
yeah.
at least a quarter.
Rich, do you want to call Greg McHenry just to see if he was gonna come over?
Guess you're ready.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. Well, talking about a lot of COVID today, we're also going to talk about the FFCRA Act, which is in response to a lot of the pandemic items that we are dealing with. And now we have school reopenings and how we need to address that with our county staff who do have school-age children. And as you know, we do have Riley County employees that live in a great variety of school districts. We have employees that, are coming from all areas of our region. So what we feel like we need to do is try to be as consistent as possible with the policy to implement towards each school district schedules and the childcare needs with our employees. Per the IRS guidelines, this does cover any school-age child that is under the age of 15. And so anyone that still may be in school and is 15 or older, this would not apply to the FFCRA/FMLA benefits that we are calculating time towards. I did do a questionnaire out to our other HR Kansas County associates, and they basically are all applying as what the recommendation is below. If an employee chooses a remote schooling option, but they do have in-class available, the benefits would be denied to go towards the FFCRA. If school is offering a hybrid model, which most of them I hear are, certain days the school is closed and or unavailable to the child and the parent is required to stay home, Riley County will consider these days home as eligible for the FFCRA benefits. The FFCRA benefits are applied, as I mentioned, only to employees with school-age children up to the age of 15. And then we are asking employees to provide appropriate documentation from their respective schools to validate what the school learning module is from that school district. Knowing that we may have some schools that are in person in session. As I understand, the Manhattan Catholic School is going to be in person in session, I believe 5 days a week. So we would not want a parent from that school district claiming that they're required to stay home when we know that school is in session for in person. So we just need to have a uniform documentation method that will determine the outcome of how we have to apply, if it's their own personal leave or if it truly is through the FFCRA and FMLA expansion leave. So those are the recommendations going forward, is to apply those guidelines for all of our staff. And I know we've already had several department heads that have expressed that they have employees that are facing with these situations going forward with their school children. So, Shiloh?
No,
Oh,
Chairman.
sorry,
Marvin.
Marvin.
Child.
I just have a quick question.
Sorry.
Can you go over, just so if you have employees who have school-age children, does this fall into the 2/3 where they have the
Yes.
27 hours that they would get paid, that they would have to still?
Come up with 1/3.
So if, like, for example, for the Manhattan model, potential model, if they have students that are going to be home 3 days of the week, do they get 2/3 of those 3 days, or do they get the 24 hours?
Yeah, we've had that discussion within how we were going to present that. And I can't remember what we decided in our discussion. But we know that 24 of those hours would be applicable towards the FFCRA if it is those 3 days that they're staying home.
Okay.
So then you have to make up the other 13 plus 3 hours into that schedule to make up for your 40.
Okay.
Because what we want to try to avoid is that we're accounting for 43 hours when truly 43 hours is not your typical work week. It's really only 40. So we'll have to adjust whatever side that balances out to. So you may have to adjust your schedule, your work schedule, to accommodate for not just 13 hours, but for 17 hours, because you've got, my math isn't right. You've got 24 over here, so you're gonna make up 16.
16, okay.
Yeah.
But they could, I mean, if their children were home Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they would still work just Monday and Friday, and they'd get their 40 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had another question, I talked in my head, now it's gone. I'll think about it.
Okay.
The
Oh,
only
I know
other
what it is.
question that I have, Cindy, dealing with, what if you have a child that has some other disabilities or some other things that are over 15, does that?
There are, yes, there are special circumstances.
Okay.
If there is a disabled or a other special circumstance, that those are qualified.
Okay.
And so that's
Specialty,
outside of this child in school
Okay.
scenario that I've identified here today.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Marvin.
I have one more question. So on FMLA for the 12 weeks, do you take the 12 weeks times 40 hours? And so then if they're using it in that 27-hour increments, they would, as long as they get to that 40 times 12.
Yeah,
Yes.
the way we do FMLA, you have 12 weeks, but that equates to 480 hours. And so the way we have to track it is any time off of that is in hours, not in weeks.
Okay.
Because the FMLA benefit, which the FFCRA is an expansion of due to COVID and childcare, that's all in one, the same 480 hours.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you had employees that when we were closed that used that, they may not have as much left
Right,
to use.
right.
And then after those 480 hours are gone, until you've reached your 1
1
year, it would be on your own time if you, and then we may or may not have to honor that.
Correct.
Okay.
Once the FMLA and FFCRA expansion, which is all one and the same 480 hours, once that is exhausted, that person is no longer eligible for FMLA protection, which means their position may or may not be protected if they have to stay home. So a lot of them, I don't know, handful of employees are gonna get to that point where they've exhausted their 480 hours. At that point in time, the employee with their supervisor is gonna have to make a decision. Do I find childcare, or do I use my leave, or do I come back to work? Or if the position is really needed to be filled and they have no alternative, we may have to separate service. Hopefully it won't come to that, but that's where this expansion has, and the school schedules has come to, unfortunately. So. And that's with any FMLA event, is once you've exhausted your protection of FMLA, then the supervisor and employee need to, find out what can we do without you in this position, and go on, so.
You guys have any questions?
Not for me.
Greg, did
You have
you
something,
have
Greg?
anything you want to add?
Nope, I think Shiloh kind of covered a couple that I was gonna ask.
Okay. So this, yeah. Marvin?
Good. Tammy?
So, so many things are changing with like the stimulus bill and things that are going on. Is there any way that the government will readdress this and adjust this for the needs, knowing that this is what the schools are gonna be doing this fall?
Possible.
I've heard that that's exactly what's gonna happen at childcare, particularly in the stimulus. Was supposed to be a big deal, but they couldn't come to a common consensus, so that's out. It's gonna be addressed at some point in time, and you know, that having access to funds to offset some of this with childcare may put us in a spot where we have to readdress it at some particular point in time. I won't be surprised. But it sounds like to me, we need to do what we need to do at least to get things started, and we'll just have to do what we've been doing and deal with it as it comes up.
You
Yeah.
need a motion on this?
Yes, if I could, get a motion to, at least, I think, again, as a first step, with, school starting up here very soon, that we need to, at least try to follow these recommendations until something else changes.
I'd move to follow the above recommendations.
I'll second those recommendations.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as you know, if anything changes, it will not be me up here to present it.
No, wait a minute. We need to make a resolution that says that even via Zoom, that the issues that she's dealing with still needs to be dealt with.
Cindy will send out a notice to all employees on that.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Elizabeth will serve you just fine.
Wait a minute. This is actually the last.
I know, this is the last.
We tried to get away scot-free on that, and that wasn't gonna work.
This could all change today.
Right, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Did you have something, Clancy?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the board, if it's okay, it should have occurred to me when I was up here, on the order. No problem amending it today, but we might as well just issue call it order 17. And later in the week, order 18 will come out. There's no magic to the numbers. Then you won't have people wondering, do I follow 16 or amended order 16 and what's different? Because each order repeals the previous one, that's what we've been doing. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're comfortable with that, that's how we'll do it.
Okay.
And do we need another motion, Rich, to make the minutes reflect accurately?
Yeah, that's what I thought originally too, because, yeah, it gets too confusing that way.
Yeah.
And actually, that's what Julie preferred. We can have it, no, because you didn't have a motion submitted in the commission agenda report, so I would just change it to order 17, because I put a note in here to get the specific motion from you.
Okay, that's cool. That'll work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, guys?
I don't have anything.
Past our lunchtime.
I've got brownies. You gotta take one, that's the deal.
Yeah, I'll take one with me.
Okay.
All right, so,
I'm barely missing my lunch.
yeah. If there's nothing else, I will admit.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.